This is the D6 generation with your hosts, Craig Gallant.
If you're getting any compensation, it's not charity.
Russ Wakeland. You put me on a boat with frickin' dragons attacking me and whatnot? Now we're talking. And Ross Watson in the third chair.
Even in the world of Accursed, the D6 generation is heard.
With contributions from Total Fangirl.
Vampires do not sparkle.
And our loyal listener.
Crazy? That's like 400 hours of gamer nonsense.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming, coming at the speed of Usain Bolt, cursed with lycanthropy, crossing him with a cheetah and a hawk. This edition of Rapid Fire is brought to you with the following message. Amy, thank you for not saying wrong whenever you are right, which is most of the time. I'm Geekly McNerdigan, your host. Today our panelists are, as always, Russ Wolfgang Kais Wakeland and special guest Ross Renkahu Watson, an undisputed guru of all things gaming. Let's begin. Issue number 1. A curse is an expressed wish that some form of adversity or misfortune will befall or attach to some other person, in particular, the curse that is currently going on in my mouth right now. Curse may refer to a wish that harm or hurt will be inflicted by supernatural powers, such as a spell or prayer. In belief systems, the curse itself is considered to have some instrumental power in the result. Question. With the entire array of curses available to quiz you on, let us go to the currently most popular. What is the name of the spell most known to muggles in the know and first-year Hogwarts students as the Killing Curse? Augustus Rockwood Russ.
Crucius. I forget the second half. Save me, Russ.
Ross.
Expelliarmus.
No.
Wrong! Avada Kedavra!
Oh, darn it.
Which, of course, makes you both wrong. And now you look like someone who has been cast a ridiculous spell upon them. Issue number 2. Shadowrun is a science fantasy role-playing game set in a near-future fictional universe in which cybernetics, magic, and fantasy creatures coexist. It combines genres of cyberpunk, urban fantasy, and crime, with the occasional elements of conspiracy fiction, horror, and detective fiction as well. The game has spawned a vast gaming empire that now includes card games, video games, novels, and a soon-to-be-released miniatures game. Question. Summarize for me the UMT, or Unified Magical Theory, as published by the great Schwarzkopf. For partial or bonus credit, who or what is Schwarzkopf? Max Russo Russ.
A leprechaun.
Randall Flagg Ross.
Schwarzkopf is a dragon, and the theory is basically magic does stuff.
I'm going to give you partial credit on that. The form that I found was that the UMT refers to the fact that all forms of magic are of equal validity and power if being wielded by an adept of equal ability, which I guess could be summarized as magic does stuff. That was meant to be a softball anyway. Whatever.
Succinct, Craig.
Still wrong, and I'm not Craig. Issue number 3. Lycanthropy is the mythological ability or power of a human being to undergo transformation into various different animal shapes, most notably, of course, the wolf. Question. The term lycanthropy is thought to come from a character in ancient Greek writings called Lycaon, who was turned into a wolf as a punishment by Zeus. Name one of the 3 crimes for which Lycaon is considered to have been thus punished. Bertold of Bregenstrad Russ.
Messing around with Zeus's wife.
Ralston the Singer Ross.
I'm going to go with murder.
Oh, interesting. Ross gets another one right. Apparently, and Russ, of course, is wrong, doubting that Zeus was a god, he sacrificed a human and offered to share the flesh to see if the king of the gods would eat it, and so is considered to have been guilty of murder, cannibalism, and impiety. And in that list, isn't that third one a doozy? Issue number 4. A professional is a person who is engaged in a certain activity or occupation for gain or compensation as a means of livelihood, such as permanent career, not as an amateur or pastime. Due to the personal and confidential nature of many professional services, and thus the necessity to place a great deal of trust upon them, most professionals are subject to strict codes of conduct enshrining rigorous ethical and moral obligations. Question. Name 3 of the 5 occupations considered the original traditional professions. Rahab Russ.
Farming. And farming.
Miss Rosie Ross.
I'm going to go with prostitution and medicine.
Well, I asked for 3. Neither of you gave me 3. Ross got 1 correct, and so I'm just going to make this one all wrong because doctors, engineers, lawyers, architects, and commissioned military officers. Thank you very much. That's it for now. Thanks for listening, and good night.
What did they all eat?
Professionals. Those are AIDS, my friend.
This episode of the D6 Generation is brought to you by Lone Wolf Development. Take your game to the next level.
And by Geek Nation Tours. Rise up and join the Geek Nation, touring the world at geeknationtours.com.
And by Conquistador Games, focusing on immersive and thematic games. More details at cqgames.com.
And the War Store, bringing the war to your door since 1999, and that is for a decade or more.
And by Winged Hussar Publishing, providing books for students of history and history students. wingedhussarpublishing.com. And by Game Salute, publishing awesome tabletop games through the Powered by Game Salute program, supporting independent publishers, stores, and the industry at gamesalute.com. Hello!
Oh,
Hello.
Hey, and welcome to episode 130
yeah, it's a good one.
of the D6 Generation. I'm Russ Wakelin.
I'm Craig Gallant.
And I'm Ross, the Game Master Watson.
Ooh, he's got a name now. Ross, welcome back to the show, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back.
Now, of course, Ross has been on before. How many times now, Ross? I can't even remember. I've lost count.
I've lost count, but I'm guessing about half a dozen.
Yeah, well, maybe, yes, and counting all the interviews and other things, possibly so. So, and of course, Ross, can you name just like a small handful of your credits for the?
I have been the head guru in charge of the 40K roleplay department for several years of Fantasy Flight.
Mm-hmm.
I left that and started doing video games over the last few years. Worked on Darksiders 2. Now I'm doing stuff for weird games on Through the Breach.
Yeah,
and I have my own thing called Accursed, which is at AccursedRPG.com.
That's a lot of stuff to do, Ross.
It is.
It is. So, well, we're going to talk about, first of all, later in the show, Craig, we're going to talk about Accursed.
We are.
Indeed. We're going to have a nice interview with Ross and several of Ross's co-conspirators on this whole Accursed thing.
Indeed.
Right. And then later,
It's accursedness.
we're going to discuss professionalism in gaming and maybe why it matters.
A subject very near and dear to my heart.
Again, and Rafe, Rafe, I did it again. That is very unprofessional, Craig. I apologize. I called you Rafe. And Craig,
Get used to it.
Craig has discussed it several times now on Do You Ever Notice? So I thought, why don't we just talk a whole segment about this thing? What was it about? And don't worry, it'll be fun and lighthearted and not at all dry.
Yes.
Not
It's all about the not preachy.
Right, exactly right.
Well, I like to think of it as an insider's look that you don't often get to see.
Yes, exactly right. A look behind the curtain, as Craig would say.
Right.
Again, unprofessional, stealing your line. See how I did that?
Hey, you
All
look
right.
at that.
I'm giving examples of what not to do here. That's my goal here today. I am the counter example, if you will.
I understand. I get it.
Oh, good. Okay, so first, though, we just had a contest just end. So we are currently gathering. The contest ended on July 15th. So if you are still entering now, stop. It will not be considered if you didn't get in before July 15th. This is the contest where we were asking you to describe your artwork that would be a tribute to the combined concepts of Core Worlds, Galactic Conquest theme, and Crude, the game about oil baronry, which is a word I made it up.
Ooh.
So we're going through your audio entries now. We're compiling them. We're carefully reviewing them. And then next episode 131, we will bring to fruition. Is it the right word, Craig?
Yes, that's a good one.
Okay. Fruition, the results of your labors and announce a winner. Right? All right. There we go. Also, announcements. Craig, we got something going on at Gen Con. What is that thing again there?
I don't know. Something about some room full of people and tickets almost selling out.
You know, Ross, I want to point out that our event, which has 7 seats left. So
7.
I know we got a room for 100, figuring no problem. We're down to 7 seats. This, of course, is our Play by Mob event, which is now becoming a tradition, I guess. We've done it 3 years in a row. So I guess
We've done it more than that.
4 years in a row.
It is a special event that I have always wanted to get to, and just for some reason had never managed to make it there, but I always want to.
Well, I hope you can, Russ, because it's usually up against the Flight Report, which is one of the downers. If you're a big Fantasy Flight fan, I know you used to be employed by them, but now that you're not, I think you can sneak away. Come on down.
There you go.
Say hi.
I can't guarantee it because I think I have a seminar scheduled opposite of that, but I will try.
Well, anyway, it's 1 p.m. on Friday of Gen Con, so if you can make it down, come on down and say hi. Try to get your tickets. It is free, so sign up for them. And if you didn't get tickets, but you still want to come by, maybe we can squeeze you in. Someone's going to no-show. They always do. So, slide in the room.
That's the thing, guys, is that because they're free, even though they're almost sold out, some people don't go because there's really no skin in the game. So, so even if you don't have a ticket, please, by all means, if you want to come, come.
We're going to have live rapid fire recorded in the room. We're going to have a live achievements in gaming involving the audience. And then, of course, a crazy play-by-mob game that, who can say what it'll be like.
And there's going to be swag, too. Lots and lots of good swag.
There's always stuff being given away.
There's always swag.
Right. So, okay, what else? Oh, Ross, we just recorded the Lost Chapters in Dunkin' Donuts, of course, and we talked to you. Do you remember, Ross, what we talked about?
We talked about a primer, if you will, on Shadowrun.
We did. So we spent a little time, because Craig, you were curious about Shadowrun, right?
I was very curious.
Yeah, exactly. What is it like? What's it about? Why are there dragons preaching about magic in it?
I'm intrigued, and I'm extremely excited for Ross's miniatures game.
Right, and Ross has been involved in some new Shadowrun products, as well as, of course, you're just basically a Shadowrun guru, right, Ross?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a guru, but I do know an awful lot about Shadowrun, and we talked not only just about what Shadowrun is about, but we actually delved into a bit about Sprawlgangers, the miniatures game as well.
Yes, exactly right. So if you're curious about
Thanks
that kind
to
of
Craig.
stuff. Yes. I'm excited about that too. So hopefully, and when that gets closer, we'd love to talk about that more. But so that's great. So if you want to listen to that, Craig, how do people get involved in Lost Chapters if they want to get in on that action?
Well, that's easy, Russ. All you'd have to do is go to our website at www.thed6generation.com. Do people still have to say www?
No, you sound very, very new when you do that.
Professional.
Yeah, unprofessional, yes.
Well, thed6generation.com, and you will notice in the right-hand margin, you will see a little picture of Charlie the Cherub carrying a big stack of books, and those books are the collated Lost Chapters. So you click on that, it'll go right to the Lost Chapters, show you what you need to do. We've got various ways you can control and arrange and organize your Lost Chapters, all free apps.
Yes, free apps. The Lost Chapters, there is a small fee. It's a great way to support the show, but we want to give you something extra for supporting the show.
The apps are free as well.
The app is free. The Lost Chapter subscription is a small fee, but the great thing about that is you're supporting us, and we want to give you an extra hour of entertainment to say thank you. And that's how that rolls.
Supporting the show helps it grow.
Thank you, Ross. That's right.
And speaking of professionalism, part of professionalism clearly is having a business plan that makes sense for you and your community.
Right.
And I can think of no better business plan, really, than offering 4 hours of free content.
That's right.
Charge for 45 minutes to an hour.
That's how we roll right here.
That's how we roll. We are the next generation's Donald Trump.
It is so counterintuitive, it's intuitive.
That's right.
That's how it works right here at the D6G.
You don't get it till you get it.
Speaking of giving more stuff away, well, don't forget also check out our new the D6G game list. If you go to our website and click the game list at the top there, it's going to list every game we've ever reviewed in the show, alphabetically so you can find it easily. And then you just can see the episodes we reviewed it in, also links to the box art and everything else. Get blurbs from Craig and I about what we like about the game. Great way to find. Yeah, we get emails all the time. What episode? Do you guys ever talk about, Small World? Did you ever talk about, Camelot? Shadows of a Camelot? Yes, both those games. Yes. So go look at the game list and find the episodes we talked about them for over an hour. In fact.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. So what's the time now for, Craig?
Right about now, it's probably time for
Achievements in Gaming. It is indeed. And Achievements in Gaming is brought to you by Rick of Joondalup, who'd like to say, to my weekend gaming group regulars, Paul, Selby, Harry, plus all the not-so-regulars. Once my new residence is sorted, we'll start up again. All right. So let's see. Well, now, just a quick reminder for our new fans, new listeners here. May not be a fan yet. That's okay. Hey, stick with us. Maybe it does sometimes get better.
It's on you, not unlike a fungus.
Right. This noise, Ross, what does that noise represent?
That represents an achievement.
Indeed. Some kind of geeky achievement. It is just in there. It's not an accident. There are other noises you may hear that are accidents. That particular noise, though, is not. All
We
right.
don't claim to be complete professionals who will have accident
Right.
of sound.
There may be other random audio. That's the one bit that is not. Okay. So what have you been playing lately, Ross?
Well, lately I've been involved in a lot of role playing. That's really kind of my focus. So I've been doing a weekly Shadowrun game for a couple of years now.
Oh, look at that.
And in between that, we've been playing Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 2nd Edition.
Mm-hmm.
We've been playing Through the Breach. And most recently, we started a new campaign with some guys in town, very old school. We're playing some Rifts.
Ooh, that is old school.
Yeah.
Nice. How do you
It's
like?
like a time machine back to the 1980s.
Yeah, it's kind of a. How do you like the system? What's your favorite part about Rifts?
Well, my favorite part about Rifts is the setting. The setting is just fantastically crazy, and it's this post-apocalyptic area where anything can happen, and you can have magical Amazons right next to a guy in power armor, right next to a dragon, right next to a dude made out of slime, and that's cool. I like that.
That's awesome. It is, and it's very eclectic. Like you said, there's all kinds of wackiness stuff.
Anything you want is in Rifts somewhere.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's a really, really neat and engaging setting, and I like it a lot.
All right, well, there's some achievements for RPGs there. Anything else you've been playing?
Well, a lot of stuff, but probably that would be an other.
Okay, fair enough. Craig, how about you?
Well, let's see. Perudo once again hits the table as a great filler game. Also, Reese loves it now. He calls it my Dice and Cups game.
Nice. You already got the kid playing game. That's fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Well, he plays a little differently than I do. He uses it just to prove to me that he knows all the different colors, because I'll just dump all the dice in front of him and put all the cups in front of him and then yell a color.
Yeah, nice.
My military background comes through as I go, yellow, yellow, yellow! Until he gets the right color.
Now, just for everybody clear, because we get questions a lot about when your kid's old enough to start playing games. Reese is how old now?
He is going to be 3 this month.
So he's not even 3, and he's already playing dice games of some form.
Yeah, I loosely.
Yeah, has he swallowed any dice yet?
He is not.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, but I did find him with one of his little wooden train engineer men in his mouth today, so it could only be a matter of time.
Yeah, they say under 3 is that risky age with swallowing things, right?
Yeah. He's never done it yet, and today he was like, this tastes good. Maybe it's time for num-nums. So anyway, Dungeon Command. We played Dungeon Command last week. Had a 4-way with 2 sides. So again, it wasn't like the full giant 4 armies clashing. It was 2 armies and 2 guys on each side kind of joint running things. And I played that with Chris, T, Dave, and Brian. That was a lot of fun.
Nice.
As always, that's a great little game. I love it. And then Spartacus with the expansions, this time 4-way instead of 6-way, with the same guys that I played Dungeon Command with. And again, so twice in a row, this time it ended in an arena tiebreaker, which is awesome. An awesome way to end Spartacus.
Did you end it in slow motion with a incredible attack?
She did. I don't feel like Brian really felt the drama. I was able to bring a gladiator that had like 4 speed, and he had 2 speed.
Oh, dear.
And really, unless you get a lucky hit at some point or I make a mistake, there's almost no way that you're ever going to even get a chance to hit me.
Mm-hmm.
So in the normal game, when that's like a 10-minute interlude, that's like, yay, that was funny. You got your butt kicked. But I can see where as a tiebreaker, that was not so much fun for Brian. But he did exhaust all of his other gladiators to try to pump him up to 12.
So that's why he got into trouble. Yeah. So there you go.
He left himself with one like not so great gladiator, whereas I couldn't trade in gladiators for victory points, so I still had my full stable of pretty kick-ass guys. So
let me ask you this. Now that you've got a couple games under your belt with the expansion, would you say the expansion improves the game in every way? Is the game still better without the...
I say there is absolutely no well, the only reason to go without the expansion would be if the only reason you like the game is this backstabby nature of it. Mm-hmm. Because it introduces enough help yourself cards that it kind of changes the mix every time you play now, because there's times when your hand doesn't have any backstabby stuff. It's kind of help myself or defend myself. There's another, that one card that we cannot name that will stop anything in the game?
Yes.
There is another card that's actually named for a song from season 3 that we would not be able to name.
Oh, yes.
And that song conjures that card out of the discard deck.
Right.
So if you get a card, you can kind of hold on to it until the actual card plays through, and then you can throw that down. And it's a very jaunty tune if you know the show. So you can, Dave had never even seen the show, and he made up his own tune to the lyrics because the lyrics are written on the card. So that was amusing. The other thing I would say is that the expansion is even more R-rated than the original game.
Yes.
So
Yep.
there are a lot of F-bombs on the cards and things like that.
Yeah, we can't name them because they're no longer PG-13, like one of the cards.
Not remotely PG-13.
Yeah, like one of the cards.
It wouldn't be Spartacus if it was totally family friendly.
Right.
Absolutely. It would be a failure of theme capturing if it was PG-13.
See, I love that Craig lets his students in high school play this game, but then you
the original game doesn't have any of that stuff on those cards.
but
There's
then
only one card, and I take that out.
Right, and you mask the side of the box because it has some quotes on it. I'm just looking forward to when the student goes home, buys his own copy, brings him his, Mom, look what game my teacher taught me to play.
Yeah,
You were playing what?
Right. That's going to be
those
awesome.
Are all seniors in my defense, but I see your point. Yeah.
Yeah. Still good. I love it. Any other games?
Craig is a responsible professional in his career as a teacher.
Yes.
There are people who would well, anyway. This new game, Love Letters, I was snagged into a game of that by friend of the show and listener, Chuck. How you doing, Chuck?
Hey, Chuck.
Okay. And Chuck was the owner and teacher of Love Letters, and Love Letters is a very quick, they told me this is the first, they told me it was a very quick card game with a deck of cards, literally only 18 cards big. Very small deck. And it's a very standard card game where every card has an ability, and it allows you to do things to other players' cards and whatever, and you only ever have a hand of one, because when it's your turn you have one card, you pill one card, you have to play one card, then it's gone to the next guy. So it's very quick. This was Russ Wakeland's The Burned Hand Teaches Best teaching technique brought to the absolute extreme.
Now remember, I wasn't there. I wasn't involved in this game.
No,
not there.
You're very much a proponent of the Burned Hand Teaches Best.
I maybe yes.
Education.
That might be happening.
And so Chuck was sitting to my right. So it was his turn before my turn, and I had a card, and my card allowed me to name a card that another player might have, and if they had that card, they had to discard it.
Okay, fair.
Okay. Chuck goes and he says, I have this card that allows me to trade hands with your card. And he gives me my card. I'm like, the princess? What's that? So I look at it. I'm like, if anybody makes you discard this card, you lose. Interesting. And it goes around. So this was my first play. Was I have a card that does nothing. I put down and I play it, and I do nothing, and I move along. That was my first turn. Do nothing. So my second turn was that's right. I didn't get a second turn because Chuck went, Craig, I think you have the princess. I play this card. Oh, you have it. Oh, you have to discard it. You're done.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Nice. So easy to teach, hard to master. Basically.
Now, of course, as Chuck was quick to point out as I walked away from the table, that was only one hand out of 5. But I had absolutely no interest in sitting around for the rest of that hand, and I pretty much knew everything about that game that I needed to know. So that was the end of my gaming for this entire session, because I went home after that.
Nice.
Not a snit, but I'm sort of sick. I had a cold. I went over and watched Russ and Rafe play their War Machine game, and when it was over, I went home.
Well, where did you play that awesome 30-second adventure game there?
That awesome 30-second card game, and the game of Dungeon Command, which is also where I bought the game of Dungeon Command, and Spartacus, and all these other games that I play at Myriad Games Manchester, one of their 3 great gaming locations.
That's right. If you're down in Staten Island area, make sure to check out their store down there.
They are the friendly professional gaming store.
They are. And how professional of you there, Ross, to jump in on that. You are such the consummate professional. Really
You are a
appreciate it.
consummate professional. This is going to get tiring quickly.
It is, but don't worry, only 3 hours left. Okay, moving on. Let's see.
That dead horse is going to get beaten so hard.
It is. We just won't let go. Okay. Well, speaking of not letting go, my diplomacy play-by-email system is still ongoing. I say I'm involved in it. Ray is actually doing all the work. I'm just along for the ride here as France. Now, and I can tell you guys about this a little bit because I don't know if you guys know this, a little behind the curtain. We record these shows a couple weeks ahead of when they actually go out. We're sort of in a weird recording pattern right now. So when I tell you this, rest assured that it is completely different now when you're hearing this than what actually happened. But a couple of episodes ago, I think I mentioned that we were in a loose affiliation between England, Germany, and France. Me being France, Jeff Engelstein was England, and our friend Dan Yarrington from Myriad Games is Germany. And I had gone aggressively against Italy. Italy was almost in certain doom of being destroyed. Italy, of course, is commanded by Stephen Bonacore, the publisher, the head of Stronghold Games, and the publisher of Jeff Engelstein's Space Cadet game series. So, by some strange reason, I do not suspect there was any sort of coercion based on the relationship between Jeff and Stephen. It was decided that that Italy should be allied with and Germany should be destroyed. So I did shift a little bit, and I'm working with Italy now on the strangest convoy. I'm actually trying to work. We have a joint convoy between France and Italy. France is now in the far eastern Mediterranean, about to invade Austria. Being allied to very revisionist history now, I am actually on the offense as France way over in the far east, and we'll see what happens. Or I could invade Turkey. I'm not really decided yet on exactly what's going to happen there.
Is there a chance for détente?
Maybe. We'll see. So it's going well. It's being a lot of fun. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just kind of going along to get along and trying not to be the first one out. So basically, it's like Survivor. You just want to be the first one voted off the island. I don't think I'm going to win. I just want to be the first one out. That's all.
With the island being Europe.
Yes, the island being Europe, which is sort of ironic. All right. Oh, also playing in the War Machine League. So Privateer Press, as always, is cranking out these leagues. I'm in the current Machinations Anomaly League, which is just fantastic. They have all these cool advanced documents with great league missions, and they have sort of like achievements, but they call them, I forget what they call them, but they're basically, you try to achieve certain things during the league, like if you can table your opponent, you get bonus points, or if you can, play 3 games in a row with 3 different warcasters, you get like achievements for that. You can only achieve these achievements once per league, but then as achievements are recorded by the league organizers and get submitted to Privateer Press, things get unlocked and you learn more about the Crisis of Convergence, which is kind of cool. So there's like this whole backstory unfolding in addition to trying to win the league. And everybody gets a patch for participating, and then you can win coins if you win the whole thing. It's a lot of fun. Having a great time.
Speaking of War Machine, I saw an announcement today that there's a thing called War Machine Tactics coming out.
The Kickstarter just went live. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. That's I'm sure the news guy's talking about that, but basically the whole story behind that, I think, is Matt Wilson wrote an article up that the original video game, they couldn't find a publisher for it. So they have decided to relook at what they wanted to do with the game, and instead of going with a third-person sort of shooter adventure game, they've turned it into a tactical sort of XCOM style, really War Machine, as if you were to play it on a computer game. Turn-based with a lot of interesting stuff. So the Kickstarter looks pretty impressive.
I don't know, though, Russ. I don't know if it's going to make it. It's been going for 8 whole hours now, and it's only got $314,000.
I know, and the goal is like $500,000. So I think they're gonna nail that. It's gonna go.
Slackers.
Now the other sneaky thing they did here was, as part of the Kickstarter, you can, if you back it high enough, you get a figure
very clever
of all the casters that are going to be in the game that come with a card, so you can play them in War Machine. Yeah. And of course, if you back the Kickstarter, you'll get an exclusive sculpt version of those guys. And then later they'll release them in a different sculpt. But they've said very publicly they're going to break the mold, literally break the molds, and they're going to do it at one of the Masters events, I think, or something, at Lock and Load or whatever, smash the molds, so you can never get the Kickstarter version of those guys ever again.
It sounds like a fantastic Kickstarter, and I hope it succeeds.
Yeah, I think it'll do well. So having a blast with War Machine, I played Josh plays the Pigs, which are basically, if you don't know about the Pigs are a Hordes faction. They technically started as a mercenary sort of a minion, I should say, for Hordes sort of group that have grown into their own sort of playable faction with enough minions together there. And what's cool about them is these guys are basically the orcs of the War Machine universe. They have really wacky rules, like officially called the Bacon Rule, which basically means if a war beast kills them, it gains health because they basically eat the pig because he tastes like bacon. Things like that. A lot of wacky stuff. It was a great game against Josh. I actually had his big pig was against Stryker and about to kill me. So Stryker overcharged his suit. Epic Stryker killed the pig, but the pig has a special rule where he gets to get one more strike against you before he dies, and he needed to roll like an 11, and he did to hit me, and he killed Stryker in his death throes and actually won the game. It was pretty cool to watch.
Just like King Robert.
Yes, killed by a boar. Good one. I didn't even think about that. I died like Game of Thrones. That's hardcore. Well, not really, because he was actually poisoned, right? So it didn't rub out the way. Spoiler. Also, then I played Rafe in 3 games of War Machine at 50-point games, and I managed to. It was my second league game. So my first league game was against Josh, lost that one. Then my league game was against Rafe, and I managed. I don't know what happened here. I managed to table Rafe, which in miniature war game parlance, table basically means kill every single model he has on the board. So all he's got left is the table.
And 50 points is pretty sizable for War Machine.
50 points is a lot of models in War Machine that can range between 20 to 30 models, which is a lot for War Machine. And the other thing about it is you don't table often in a War Machine because of caster kills. So a lot of times you'll kill their Warcaster. That'll win you the game. Tabling means you got to kill everything else first and then their caster, which is not easy. It just happened to work out that way because I surprised Rafe.
Colossal in that game?
No, that kid did not have the Colossal. Okay. So that was his first. That motivated Rafe to go home and build his Colossal.
There you go.
So then this week I was planning to play one 50-point game against Rafe, and he got his Colossal out, not painted but assembled. It looked fantastic. Look for pictures shortly. Looked awesome. And we played one of the wackier, or not wacky, but more complex missions in the league, which had a thing called Kill Zone, which means your Warcasters get away from the edge of the table. And I kept telling Rafe, get your caster with me edge of the table. He's like, I know, but I'm going to give up some points. If you stayed next to the edge of the table, you didn't auto lose, but you gave up control points. And so Rafe gave up 2 control points to me. And when he did so, he didn't push to the center hard enough, and I was able to get 3 more control points and win the game. So in our first battle, he literally got like 1.5 turns in, and I won. And he's like, oh, I see. I should have thought more about the mission. And so it was not satisfying for him, or nor for me, although I'll take the league win. I'm not proud. So then I played him again, and it was a much more epic game, which is the one Craig watched, and a great battle. And the Colossal actually got engaged with 2 of my best Warjacks, some of the biggest Warjacks in the Signar list. He walked up to him and literally one-shotted them. He hit one, killed it, boxed it out, hit the other one, boxed it out, and he just the smile on Rafe's face was from ear to ear, and it felt great. So I didn't feel bad at all about killing his caster in the game and still winning the game.
Awesome.
But it was still a great battle. It was an awesome fun. And what's really ironic about this game, and I told Rafe about it, was he was actually decimating me, and he just underestimated getting too close to me with his caster. He should have kept Vlad back. But if he played slower, he actually had me down to like 4 models. He could have tabled me in return and got a little payback from the week before, and he just didn't. He was just not playing as observant as he should have been. But he knew it later. He's like, oh, I could have done it. So yeah, that Colossal's nasty. I got to figure out a way to deal with that thing. The more Rick plays it, the more nasty it's going to get. And then finally, I managed to play, I don't even know how to pronounce this, Voluspa, with an umlaut and accent aigu. Yeah, the umlaut's over the O and the... Anyway, it's a tile-laying game from our friends at Stronghold Games, and it is themed after the Norse mythos. So you got these tiles with really cool artwork, like the head of Loki, or the head of Odin, or the head of Thor, and the various gods from Asgard. And you basically put the tiles down side by side, and as you do so, there's numbers on each of these tiles, and if you put a tile in a row or a column that is the highest number, you score points equal to the number of tiles in that row or column. So if you add a tile to the 3rd row and you put down Odin, who has a value of 8, he's actually the highest value in the game, no one else is above him, you're going to score those 3 points. But then there are special rules on all the tiles. Like the dragon tile can actually go on top of somebody and basically cover them up and remove them from the row. The Loki tile, which is really cool, he's only value of 1, but all tiles adjacent to him go to value 0. So there's things like that where all the gods sort of behave kind of in tricksy ways you'd expect. So it's basically an abstract tile-laying game, but it plays for up to 5 players, and it's pretty fun on my girls, and I also played with my brother and his family, and we had a great time with it. So it's a fun little tile-laying game. Easy to teach, tricky to master, and plays pretty quick.
Very nice.
So I had fun with that. So, that's all the games I've been playing.
A lot of games.
Ross, you done any modeling lately?
Well, I am participating in a painting of models that is for a charity that benefits several children's hospitals, and it is it has to do with the Reaper bones, the vampire level of model. David Farr is coordinating that, and Craig kind of got me involved with the whole project, so I'm excited to be helping out for charity.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is Kobolds for Kids, right?
Kobolds for... I guess it is.
Yes, it is. And
the entire giant 250 some odd models in that box, no kobolds.
Exactly. There are no kobolds in the box. But yeah, some friends of ours, actually Dave Farr and some of the guys from the Nerd Herders and some other local gamers decided to do this, and it's going to benefit some children's hospitals. And also, they got Reaper. Reaper is able to donate 1 copy of the vampire kit, and so we're dividing it up, and they're all of us are going to paint a little bit of this thing, and then they're going to auction it off, and all the proceeds go to charity.
Yep.
So it should be a lot of fun.
It's a good cause, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, me too.
Have
plus-
you got your models yet, Ross?
I have not. I need to contact David Farr and just kind of follow up on that.
Because he's got all your.
Yeah, they just got in, so they're probably shipping them out to you now.
I have no doubt that I will be receiving it very soon.
Nice. Craig, how about you? Any painting?
I actually primed my 9 Pathfinder goblins for Kobolds for Kids, and I am finding the bones material to be problematic.
All right, how so?
It's more rubbery than I anticipated.
Yeah, it's a little more. It feels a little more like Descent board game quality than I expected.
I would say it's more rubbery than Descent board
Even
game
that?
quality,
Okay.
because I had painted all the Descent board game models.
Yep.
And so I'm pretty conversant with that level of plastic, and this seems, and it could very well be mainly because the goblins might have more fiddly bits, but it feels very rubbery to the point where I'm very nervous about dry brushing.
Yeah.
If I may, I was also very surprised to find out the consistency and texture of the Bones miniatures when I was looking at a couple of them. I had expected something a little closer to, say, fine cast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was expecting about the Descent miniatures level, and this is close to that. And the bigger models could very well be that heft. These are really the only. I mean, I've actually handled a bunch of them over the last few weeks as the packs start rolling in locally, but I didn't notice anything about the material until I started. One thing that people will start realizing as these start infiltrating through the gaming community is that there's a whole debate on how to prime them. And there's lots of arguments about all kinds of different spray primers not working. And rather than take a chance, I wanted to try to there was a big launching event on Saturday, and I missed it. And the launching event actually presented an opportunity because a bunch of people brought in their airbrushes specifically to prime people's models at my request. And then I wasn't able to go and take advantage. So I had to apply black primer by brush, which I never enjoy doing, which is how I first encountered the rubbery texture. So that's really all I've done since then.
All right, well,
I just looked at all.
On the upside, goblins are very close to kobolds.
Yes.
That is true. That is very true.
Well, I have some more updates on that topic because I also am painting some stuff for Kobolds for Kids, and I got my models in advance of the super launch event that was on last Saturday, and thanks to the folks at Dine and Mike for organizing and using their headquarters there, their corporate headquarters, for us to go in and paint. It's a beautiful facility. And what was cool was I did prime mine. So I was not wise to the whole debate about whether primer works or not. So I, like a fool, grabbed my 4 guys that I had and took them out to my garage and primed them with P3 primer like I prime everything else, and darned if it didn't work perfectly.
See, that's what I was thinking.
I had no problem. Now, I use P3 primer, which is good miniature primer, I think. And I never had an obscure detail before. Didn't have a problem here either. They looked exactly like before I started with them.
They're not tacky at all?
Nope. They're perfectly fine. And I also used that on when I painted some of my Battlelore models, because it's a similar consistency to the Battlelore. They're a little rubbery, and I had no problem with that primer either on them. So I haven't experienced that issue. And I like to paint them black anyway. Some people said, hey, you can just wash them off and paint right on this sort of white colored plastic. But I just primed them black and did my normal thing. And so we sat down there on the first day, and I gave my oldest daughter, she wanted to do one and help out. So I gave her one of my black prime ones. I painted one, and we just sat there for about an hour and a half or so with the rest of the crew, painted, got some good tips on painting, and it was nice to hang out with everybody. And we got a couple models done. I got a few more to go, but it was fun. So it was good times. Now, also in my painting for myself category,
what are you painting for the Kobolds for Kids before you go rushing forward?
I don't know what they're called. I got a dude that looks like a paladin type guy. Okay, got a nice cape. I painted out blue.
Adventurers.
Rose. Yeah, Rose. They're all heroes. Rose painted looked like a female hero, which she really liked. And then I've got looks like a D&D Dragonborn type guy.
Ah, gotcha.
And then I've got another hero of some kind, like a wizard or something. So they're all heroes. No monsters.
So you got a lizard and a wizard.
A wizard and a wizard. That's right, baby.
What a professional wordsmith we're dealing with.
No, the man's a consummate professional. So working on, I'm this close to having my 50-point sort of electricity Signar list finished.
Yes,
I've got
it looks quite almost completely painted.
it does. I got E Striker. I'm very close on Epic Striker. Taking my time on him. I want him to be right, and I'm experimenting with the shading techniques described in the actual Signar Force book. So I went out and I got the exact colors from the P3 line that they recommended. I've been doing it, and actually it's working pretty well for me. I'm really pleased with it. So I'm happy with that. And then the last piece, once E Striker's done, which is about a day away from being done. I bought the new, well, not new, I just never owned one. For new to me, the Hammersmith kit, which is this giant, one of the biggest jacks. It's dual hammer wielding jack.
Stop.
Yes.
Hammer time.
Exactly right. I wear the parachute pants. I shuffle left and right. It's awesome. So the Hammersmith, I primed him now. He's all assembled. So I just got to paint him next. And then that army's done. And then I can move on to my Colossal so I can deal with Rafe. And this is kind of a fun story. So my oldest daughter, who we're playing Hordes about so I'm including shopping again in modeling. I'm going to do it. She's almost done with her megalith. She's just got a little bit of attached sort of branchy stuff in the base to be done. So she's ready to get her next unit. So for the past 2 months, she's been saving all of her money, her allowance, any money she gets for from friends or whatever. She's been saving all her money. And she said, Dad, I want to buy the next, I want to get a unit now. I'm ready to, right now we do the starter boxes plus one other war beast each. So she wants to get a unit. So she looks at what the unit she wants to get, and she starts looking online, checking out our sponsors, the War Store or our friends over at our newest sponsor there, Miniature Market. She's looking at that stuff and she's like, and she wants to get the Warpborn. Now the Warpborn there's an older kit of the Warpborn, which is $40 for 3 models, but they're big medium-based models. She's like, that's kind of expensive. But then she saw that there's the plastic kit out now, which is $35, $5 cheaper for the full 5 models. And she literally squeezed, she's like, woohoo! She got all excited. So she's just a gamer already, shopping for those deals. So she's got
Russ, as much as you like Stryker, I think you should track down one of those sound clips from the movie Airplane and bring that on the show in the future.
Which one?
There's so many, but they're the main character, of course, in Airplane is Jeff Stryker.
Oh, yes, I'd forgotten about that. That's right. Still have a drinking problem? All right. All right, so that is the modeling section. What about other stuff like movies, books, TV shows? Ross?
Oh, man. Well, I've not been on the show in a long time, so I'm going to just kind of go through like the stuff in the most recent that I can remember the most.
Fair enough. Yeah, last 2 or 3 weeks.
Movie-wise, Man of Steel.
What'd you think?
That.
How'd you like it?
I liked it as a movie. I felt that there were some things, especially in the third act, that were not especially Superman and not especially superhero, but it's definitely an entertaining film. And I've been reading a lot of books. I want to make a special mention of these books for the Galactic Football League, written by Scott Sigler. And now I'm not a football fan. I never have been. And my whole understanding of the football game kind of came through me getting involved in things like Blood Bowl and the like. So when I was reading the Galactic Football League books, I was a little, I'm not sure I really would like this. Once I started reading them, though, I got really into it because Mr. Sigler is a very, very good author, and he has a really good way of bringing across all the nuances of the game to a reader. And then, of course, setting that in a galactic setting where there's aliens on the football field and different rules for different environments that they play the game in, and it was just really, really well done. And I want to highly recommend it to people who are looking for something a little bit different in their sci-fi.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I'll put that on my list.
And let's see. Well, I've been playing a lot of computer games lately. I have an iPad that I carry almost everywhere with me, so I've been doing a lot of games on the iPad. And lately, I've been really engrossed in 2 of them. One is Warhammer Quest.
Oh, yeah, that's a good implementation.
iOS.
Yeah,
hearing that a lot.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice. It is really good. I think there's some flaws. I wouldn't say it's a perfect game. There's just a lot of game, and unfortunately, you stop getting levels after 6. And I kind of got to level 6 in the first region. I didn't even make it out of the first region, and I hadn't maxed out my characters.
Yeah.
So I felt like they certainly could have done some things with the length of the game. But as far as the experience of playing Warhammer Quest, it is totally Warhammer Quest on your iPad. I mean, it's got every little nook and cranny of Warhammer Quest is in there, and I really enjoyed it. And then my friend Jason Marker, who we're going to be talking to in the interview about Accursed, he introduced me to a game called Game Dev Story, which is a game on the iPad where you are managing a game development company.
Nice.
And you have to kind of keep things balanced with your directors and your producers and your sound engineers. And what I thought was really interesting is that it does mimic in a lot of ways, and sometimes very accurately, in a lot of ways, how it is in a video game design environment. And I thought it was just one of those extremely addicting games that you just play and play and play, and you're like, 5 more minutes.
Right.
So that's what I've been up to lately.
Nice.
Oh.
Craig, how about you, man?
Well, I'm still listening to the audio book of Ender's Game, and I'm loving it because it's awesome. I particularly like the fact that it's multiple narrators, which you don't see very often. And this one is awesome because all of the Ender stuff is one guy, and then there's 2 guys that are kind of like the overseeing officers that are watching him progress through school, and they're 2 different guys. And then there's a girl when the narration is from his sister's point of view, and a different guy when the narration is from his mother's point of view.
Oh, that's cool.
It's really.
Now, Craig, I have a quick question for you about that. Has the controversy surrounding Orson Scott Card in recent days, has that changed your opinion of his work at all, especially Ender's Game?
I'm unaware of what you mean, that he's a Mormon?
Well, there was some very outspoken with the recent Supreme Court decision on DOMA. Yeah. He was a very outspoken antagonist of that decision. And it has made things for him very polarizing, because he feels he feels so strongly, he uses extremely inflammatory language, I would say.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. Things like a government that allows gay marriage can and should be overthrown by any means necessary. That's me paraphrasing, but I believe that's very close to what he said. Well, that's pretty inflammatory. I think you'd agree.
I will 100%. That is extremely inflammatory. I would argue that probably comes from his religious background, which I do not share. But I happen to think that I don't think anybody's going to be attacking the government over gay marriage. And so, no, I would say it probably doesn't affect I know that he's a Mormon, and I have friends who are Mormons, and I know how strongly they hold their convictions, many of which I don't share. And so...
Well, to be clear, I'm leaving the religious part out of it. To be clear, I'm just talking about his public statements on their own.
Right, but I'm assuming where those public statements are coming from. I wouldn't make statements like that even if I shared those opinions, which I don't. But no, much like my wife can enjoy the music of people who are downright awful human beings, I think I'm going to just say I'm going to go with what one of my literary professors said in college, and that is, get out of the literature what you get out of it, and don't worry about what the person put into it.
Judge the creation, not the creator.
Right.
You could say that. Yeah. Okay. I am a fan of Orson Scott Card, some of his work. I'm not a fan of his entire body by any stretch of the imagination, but I would be hard pressed to find 3 books that I would put in the same category as Ender's Game.
On the D6 generation, we like to ask the tough questions.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Really, that was a very professional thing to spring on me. Thank you.
Achievement for that, Ross. That was well done.
Anyway, still listening to or still reading The Neutronium Alchemist by Peter F. Hamilton. Still finding it strange, but strangely compelling. I will admit that I picked up the latest No Quarter.
Ooh.
And wow. I will say that Privateer Press has done it again with the new convergence of, what is it, Cyrus?
Yes. What have they done?
They have proven that they do not care about my aesthetic taste at all.
Were you hopeful you'd like the new faction?
I watch you guys and I watch you play, and Like there are very few people I know that I can play a game with and always enjoy it, and you and Rafe are both two of those people.
Oh, that's very kind.
And so I watch your games. I'm envious almost every time I'm watching you two and only you two play. And then there was this new thing, and it was easy to paint, and I was like, oh, maybe. And I'm just, seriously?
What about the winged female robot chicks?
They look beautiful, but you can't field an entire army of those.
No, you can. You can, because there's a warcaster, and then she can field a whole unit that she's got her theme list as all those guys. So you don't think it'd be fun to field all the flying chicks there?
You maybe once.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, I'm having worked on the RPG for Iron Kingdoms. I have to say that the different styles of all the different factions, I mean, they do bring some across that are great for some people. I guess it just takes finding the right one for you.
I don't know. I mean, it's all about the aesthetics for me for that game, because I think the game itself is great, except that I don't like the caster kill element. And I don't like there's the page 5 thing has been a non-issue for years, but
right.
an interesting mutation has occurred where the page 5 thing has become a completely non-aggressive, like it's not any way, shape, or form like a social thing. It's just a thing in this game where most of the players look at the game as a game of chess more, where they're sacrificing pieces, which is a totally, completely valid way to look at any military operation, game or otherwise. I mean, you have to sacrifice, you have to be willing to sacrifice all everything. But I'm much more of a romantic, and I think that game is lacking in romanticism.
You care about the men in your army, Craig. You want to tell their stories too.
Right. Those little plastic and metal men mean a lot to me.
Well,
every time I watch a game, somebody's like, oh, I knew you were going to take out that unit, but I also knew I could kill you after you. And I'm like, that's totally valid, but it doesn't feed what I want fed from a miniatures game, if that makes sense.
Well, Craig, achievement
totally makes sense to me.
Yeah, achievement for reaching out and trying again with War Machine. Even though
I haven't tried again.
Well,
I'm trying to try.
You said you paid your $7 to read no quarter, right? So
I did.
All right.
And that actually happened in the battle report, where the guy was like, no, I knew this unit was going to die, so I was fine with that. But I was like, oh, God, no. But, yeah, I tried.
Yep.
And the aesthetic thing is just, I don't.
Right.
And it always, what it comes back to is those elves look awesome, everything they own except for those cod pieces, and I can't get past them. So
what if you filed them all off? File all the cod pieces off.
There you go, green stuff. That probably wouldn't be a good idea. Okay, anyway, moving. So I also picked up the Chaos Codex, which I was like, okay. I also noticed that Russ put in his bullet points that he watched Hansel and Gretel, the Witch Hunters.
I did. What'd you think?
I thought it didn't know what it wanted to be.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was a fun, silly movie mashed together with, we're going to make it gritty and dirty and gross. And I don't think that it really succeeded. I enjoyed it, but I kept being dragged out of the enjoyment level of it, because then they would have this gross, disgusting blood splash gore fest.
Yeah, I was with you there, because I liked it. It was fun, but there were, Nicole and I watched it together, and there were parts where you just went, oh, that's over the top gross. It's like, you're right. It was trying to be a horror film, but then it wasn't. So,
and the F-bombs were completely,
yeah, right.
Wanted to be one of those fun, quirky fantasy movies that people have been making for 20 years now.
Yeah.
But it wanted to be an edgy, gross one. And I was like, why?
Yeah, it could have been Princess Bride if they just toned things down. Yeah.
It wouldn't have been as good as Princess Bride.
No.
It would have been something along those lines. And instead it was like, F this, F that, explode in gore. And I was just like, I enjoyed it. I thought it was silly fun, but at the same time, I wasn't able to fully just let go and enjoy it because of that.
Right.
Not even Hawkeye could save that movie.
Not even Hawkeye. Yeah, this is your breakaway attempt. Okay, well, good luck, buddy. And I don't even know who the guy's real name is, but Karen walked in while I was watching. I was sick, wrapped up on the couch, couldn't do anything, so I was just watching that. And she's like, "Oh my God, is that so and so?"
Yes, Hawkeye.
Jeremy Renner.
There you go, Jeremy Renner. And I was like,
Hawkeye.
Yes. She went in a movie like this.
It was fun. It was worth the $5 to rent it on Xbox. I had fun with it.
No, I said it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But it wasn't. You're right. It could have been a great film. Instead, it was just mediocre.
Could have been a great film of its type.
Right.
It just didn't know what type it wanted to be.
Right. Exactly.
I also saw This Is the End.
Ooh.
What'd you think?
And I am also not a big fan of pot humor. So Seth Rogen movies and me kind of hit or miss. I like him as a person in interviews, and I like him in movies. I just don't find when they're actually doing drugs to be particularly funny. Luckily, in this movie, most of it is not that. It's hilarious. It's a very funny premise that's established at the very beginning of the movie and goes all the way to the end. I really enjoyed myself. There were a couple really guilty moments where I was like, oh, that is wicked funny. Unfortunately, they do show a couple of the funniest moments on the preview, but what are you going to do?
Right.
I'm looking forward to seeing The End of the World, the one with Simon Pegg and Nicholas Frost.
Yes, I want to see that badly, yeah.
Me too. I thought that's what this was until I looked it up to buy the ticket.
Nope.
So I was like, oh, okay, I'll go watch this one.
All right.
I don't see how you could possibly confuse the two.
Just the name.
And it's got to end it.
Obvious to the most casual observer.
Let it go.
Ross Watson. That's the question. Ross Watson is gunning for me. And as far as movies go, I'm just going to put it out there that all of my hopes for the summer are hinging on the Pacific Rim opening tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And Craig,
Tickets already bought.
Yeah, I'm putting it out there now, Craig. I'm going to want to play Monster Apocalypse with a Passion after that movie.
Yeah.
So do you still have your copy? Because let's just play next week. I'm just
Pieces.
throwing it out there. Let's just do that.
Yeah.
All right, so for me here, I'm still happily listening to the Dresden Files, Book 8.
Now, Russ,
Proven Guilty. Yes.
what do you think about Jim Butcher's position on capital punishment?
On what now?
Capital punishment. I'm kidding.
Capital punishment? I don't know his position on capital punishment, but I like how he writes about wizards in the 20th century.
Okay.
No, I'm really enjoying Proven Guilty. I don't think we should background check all of our all of our creative minds in the world. We just got to, they're all creative, so part of them is a little bit different than the way the rest of us think. So who knows? But anyway, so enjoying Dresden Book 8.
Where'd you get that book, Russ?
I got it from Audible. Our friends at audibletrial.com/D6G will hook you up.
They will.
With a free audio credit, which gets you pretty much any book in their library to keep even if you cancel your subscription. It gets you a free 30-day trial of the Audible account, which means that any sales,
all of the deals that they send to you for that
deals going on, grab your favorite audiobook. They do have Ender's Game on there. They have the Dresden Files on there. They have Game of Thrones on there. You name it. If it's a book that's of any caliber, it's in their library, no doubt.
Yeah,
and I can use my free credit from the D6 generation to get one of those books and listen to it on my own time.
You can, exactly right. While you're painting models, mowing the lawn. I do for mowing the lawn all the time. Mowing the lawn, driving to work, all those things. Great way to fill in the gaps.
Indeed.
In your day. Working out, also very handy. Now speaking of movies, I saw The Lone Ranger this weekend.
I'm going to put it out there that Russ is one of the 21% of the people who have seen the movie and liked it.
Yes. Well, here's the thing you got to understand about this movie. First of all, I've already said that I was a huge Lone Ranger fan growing up.
Uh-huh.
That said, they took an interesting angle with this film. And it does have a little bit of it doesn't know what it wants to be, definitely. It is, in parts, slapstick.
Really?
It just is. And
that's something I certainly remember from all the Lone Rangers. Oh, wait.
Well, yeah. So, it's by the guys that did Pirates of the Caribbean, and you could argue there are parts in Pirates that are sort of getting close to there. It's got mysticism in it, which is a little bit weird, although that does match some of the Lone Ranger books. But it's got really sort of over the top slapstick intermixed with. There's no real gore per se, but the villain is very gross, or just evil. So that part's a little over the top, but the finale is worth the price of admission. The finale is so great. Just watching. I mean, you got to be in the right. Your head's got to be in the right place. But there was laugh out. Like the audience was laugh out loud several times in the movie where they obviously intended it to be. It was funny. It was kind of like, it was almost like 1941. It was like that kind of weird, kind of wacky movie. But
that's a ringing endorsement.
Well, I mean, it was weird. It was weird, but it was fun. I liked it, and the finale was great and just over the top wackiness. And I like Johnny Depp in the role, and the way they did the whole thing. So I enjoyed it. But I probably, if I was going to do my dream version of Lone Ranger, that would not be it. So I mean, I didn't love it, but I had fun with it. I was happy I went.
Enjoyed it?
What's that?
You enjoyed it.
I did. I had fun.
Yep.
Also catching on some old films. I already mentioned Hansel and Gretel there, but also I watched Red, which I had not seen.
That's good.
And I was inspired to watch Red because in The Lone Ranger, there was a preview for Red 2.
Yeah.
And I was like, that looks great. And because there's a 2 at the end, there must have been a 1. So
Red 2, even redder.
Yes. Have you guys seen Red?
I have seen Red, yes.
I have not.
Ross, just whatever you're doing whenever you're ready to watch a movie, go rent it. It is just a fun sort of, basically, retired operatives start getting hunted by their own government, and they team up and start kicking butt.
Action.
The idea of it sounds really, really cool.
It's fun, and it's clearly based on a DC comic, which I did not know. Because it's
Well, that automatically makes it even more awesome.
Maybe most DC comic movies are not great, but this one, well, I guess Batman's an exception. But yeah, so hopefully this will you'll like it. I liked it a lot. I thought it was fun, and it must have done reasonably well because they're making a second one.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, in the gaming space, I am playing Endless Space.
Ooh, what you did there. Very professional.
Thank you. So, so Endless Space is a space conquest 4X game. Expand, exploit, exterminate, all that stuff. And so anyway, this one is neat because unlike some of the other games, this is turn-based. So this is almost like Civilization space. It's very turn-based. Even the combat is turn-based. So when combat happens, there's 3 phases of combat, and you pick from cards, actually, virtual cards, what you want your fleet to do tactically at the different phases of combat. So, which I think a lot of video game folks were like, what? But as a board gamer, I'm like, this is cool. I can get behind this. And because it's turn-based, I can play a few turns, put it away, play a few turns. It's not like the real-time thing, and I don't feel the pressure of a real-time strategy game. So I really like it a lot. And it just came out with an expansion, which has added fighters and carriers. The thing that's really cool about it is kind of like Eclipse. You can build your ships out and design your own craft. So it gives you a lot more depth, kind of very Masters of Orion-y. If you're a Masters of Orion fan, this is a must-check-out game.
And it is available on Steam, I believe.
It is available on Steam, and I think they just had a big sale when the expansion came out. I'm not sure what's going on still, but it's like $9. I don't know. It was really cheap. So I would definitely check that out. Endless Space. If you like strategy 4X games, definitely worth a look. So, Hugh, is that achievements?
That is achievements.
Very professional.
You're listening to the D6 generation. Born to gain.
And that means it's time to talk about Lone Wolf Development.
Oh, yeah, baby.
These guys are the computer programming company for gamers.
Oh, yeah. That's right. And, what are some of the great games, Craig, they do? I know that, programs. They got Army Builder.
The absolute number one for me, and it always will be, is Army Builder, which makes any miniature war game accessible with just the click of a mouse. It really is crazy. It takes all of the pain and suffering of making your army lists, puts it all away, and makes it actually one more fun aspect of the game. So you can whip up 10 or 20 lists over the course of an evening where you would normally agonize over one. Of course, you can do the exact same thing with Hero Lab with your RPG characters. But as a GM, you can do all kinds of other stuff with Hero Lab as well. Now, speaking of GMs, though, the number one thing that you want as a GM has got to be Realmworks.
Realmworks.
What is going on with Realmworks, Russ?
Well, I've said with my Iron Kingdoms campaign, I've been using Realmworks. I love it. It's such an easy way to keep organized and be ready to go for the next game. And, the Kickstarter finished a while ago, and the early access was delayed slightly. It was supposed to come out in June, or actually May originally. Then it was June. Now it's July. But the good news is they just put an update today, and they are turning everything on today and tomorrow. So this week, the folks that paid extra for early access should be in sometime this week. So you're probably looking at, it'll be phased in. So people are going on lighting up as we go through. But that's looking really exciting. So be in there. So this is getting really close now. You're going to get access to Realmworks. And I can't wait because it's so fantastic. I can't wait for other people to see it and just experience it and use it for the campaigns. I also can't wait for the full version so I can share it with my players and let them see it. Right now I'm kind of using it on the side. I'm just so excited for it. It looks like they're on track for this thing to be rocking by Gen Con, so very exciting stuff. If you're going to Gen Con, be sure to check out the Lone Wolf booth because you will not be disappointed in all their great software. Get the demos, see their new iPad apps. You can now view your armies and Army Builder on the iPad. You can do Pathfinder characters on iPad, and you're going to be able to see Realmworks being demoed live there, so definitely check it all out.
It really is.
There's no other place you can go where you can get every tool you need to make your gaming more fun.
Exactly. wolflair.com. And now, what's in the news? With the shout-out, want your miniature sci-fi vehicles to look great even after they get blasted to smithereens? Search for Worldsmith Industries on Kickstarter starting in August for resin-wrecked vehicles that let you look good while you're getting tabled. Ha! I think Granger needs some of those. Just tabled his bot. Wakeland, did you write this? Granger got tabled? Yeah, just read what I wrote. Jeez, how did we let you start writing copy? Anyway, and now the news. Up first, Clash of Cultures expansion. I think Wakeland's kind of excited. I am excited about this. I'm not sure why. I mean, I know Wakeland likes the game. By the way, the expansion, Civilizations, will add 14 different civilizations to the game. Right now, Clash of Cultures, great game, but each side is, there's no faction-specific powers. Looks like they're going to add that. 14 different civs being added to the game. Each civilization will have unique advances and different leaders. There will also be some new city bits. Remember, Clash of Cultures is all kinds of plastic city parts as you build your cities up. We're going to add some new ones to allow you to increase your size of your cities. However, you can still only place 4 cities around your settlements. So you have to choose wisely which bits you're going to use. And other big additions. Oh, here's why Wakeland's excited. Elephants, baby! That's right. As Wakeland has pointed out many a times, there's an elephant in the box, but no elephant in the game. Not anymore. Big addition to this expansion is adding elephants and horses. Quote to their press release, yes, there will be elephants and horses. They've been listening to me. They may have been listening to Wakeland. And not all civilizations in history had access to elephants and horses. Not all civilizations in the game will have access to them either. So not everyone will have elephants, apparently. So that's exciting news. If you're a big fan of Clash of Cultures, great 4X game, a little more depth to it. Looks like it's coming. And speaking of expansions, Mice and Mystics also has an expansion coming from Plaid Hat Games. Let's see. Evil stirs within the castle, according to the press release. Prince Colin and his friends defeated Venestria, assuming you played the first version. And although the evil's been banished from the castle forever, but deep within these scorched and shadow-haunted halls, something's moving that should not be. A malicious presence has taken root. In the new storybook, so it's a whole new adventure, the Heart of Glorm storybook. Picks up right after the story in the original game left off. Adds some new plastic, new monster bits, new models. Looks fantastic. So if you like Mice and Mystics and wanted some more story, it's coming real soon. This is interesting news for video game fans out there. Stardock Entertainment. You may know Stardock from such great video games as, they did Sins of a Solar Empire. Yeah, Sins was great. Sins of a Solar Empire, a great real-time 4X space combat game. Now Stardock's got another space combat game coming. They've rebooted Star Control. Oh, Star Control is awesome. Star Control is a great game from the 90s. Star Control 2 is particularly good. And according to the press release, we expect the new Star Control to come in the form of reboot, similar to what Firaxis did with XCOM series. Oh, that's always good. And they're looking to Star Control 2 for inspiration. So Star Control 2, probably the best of the series. Looking like they're going to make another version of that. Nothing wrong with that. It's very exciting. Let's see. Other exciting news. Name of the Wind TV show. I believe Wakeland and Craig talked a lot about Name of the Wind in the book they read a little while ago. I think Wakeland claimed it was something like the best book similar to Harry Potter that's not similar to Harry Potter. Yeah, something like that. In any case, if you like Name of the Wind and Patrick Rothfuss's work, you might be excited to know there's going to be a television series. 20th Century Fox has just announced they've optioned the TV series. It's going to take place, let's see, it's going to follow the events of Name of the Wind and follow through the other 2 books of the trilogy, even though only the first 2 have been written so far. So apparently, kind of like George R.R. Martin kind of thing going. So nothing more to wait on casting or anything else, but that's kind of exciting. So we'll have to see what happens there. Speaking of television shows, how about Firefly? That's right, Firefly. A lot going on at Gen Con around Firefly. You're going to see the Gale Force 9's Firefly board game will be there. I think Game Salute's got a Firefly Kickstarter going on right now with cards in it or something. And Margaret Wise Studios has announced, of course, they're going to be doing the Firefly RPG. We've talked about that before. Now, if you're excited about that, they're going to have a Gen Con pre-order situation going on where you can pick up sort of a little preview copy at Gen Con. And you can also pre-order that preview copy if you'd like directly from margaretweiss.com as well if you're really interested in that. And speaking also of Firefly games, I mentioned just moments ago the Gale Force 9 game. If your local game store carries Game Trade Magazine, or GTM, you'll want to get a copy of it this month, because this month in Game Trade Magazine comes the free, the magazine's about $3, but free inside every copy of the magazine is a plastic Firefly class ship and a game card for the board game, which is exciting because not only is it a new ship you get to play in the game, but also it is another player in the game, so you increase the player count by owning this free bit. So if you're looking for that Firefly board game, whether you're not going to go to Gen Con, make sure you get the latest Game Trade magazine. Let's see. Oh, also another news, Dark Heresy, the RPG, is having a second edition beta going on at Fantasy Flight. Head over to the Fantasy Flight Games website to check that out. Let's see, milestones. Oh, here's an interesting milestone. iTunes just announced a week or two ago, maybe, that they've now had over 1 billion podcast subscription downloads on iTunes. 1 billion. That's a lot of podcast listeners. Thanks to all of you out there who've been listening to our show and counting your vote in amongst those billion. And finally, Robotech versus G.I. Joe. Yeah. Sadly, no, it's not a really cool crossover comic in which the Veritechs from Robotech show up and start fighting alongside or against G.I. Joe or anything crazy like that. No, sadly, Harmony Gold, the guys who own Robotech license, are alleging copyright infringement against the latest Robotech and Transformers crossover. G.I. Joe and Transformers crossover. There was a original one. There's actually a toy box labeled the G.I. Joe and the Transformers, the Epic Conclusion. And in this one, apparently there's a couple jets in there that look an awful lot like a Veritech fighter. So there you have it. We'll see what happens there. And that's what's in the news.
And of course, these next folks that we want to talk about, I should probably mention, they're publishing my book.
2 books, Craig.
Two books.
Don't undersell yourself.
It has something to do with the fact that I'm finishing the first one tomorrow.
Good. Well, so that means I can go buy it on the street Thursday?
Yeah. Well, the miracles of digital publishing. No, you can't. You're still going to have to wait until October, I believe.
So our friends at Winged Hussar are publishing. Now, these books are about, of course, Wild West Exodus.
They are indeed. The Wild West Exodus stories that are going to begin with Jesse James in the Jesse James archive, which will follow Jesse James throughout the Wild West. You get all kinds of cool time in the place called Diablo Canyon, and there's a lot of Kansas City, and there's a lot of Payson.
Craig, is there gunplay?
There is lots of gunplay.
Oh, good. I'm sold.
Indeed. And of course, not just me. I'm writing the first and the third books in this particular series. We also have C.L. Werner, who will be writing the middle book, and he's a famous author. Who writes for Games Workshop and Privateer Press. He's got stuff all over the place. So that is Winged Hussar jumping out into fiction. Of course, they do all kinds of awesome historical stuff as well.
Right.
But I'm very happy to be involved in their first foray into fiction.
So what you want to do is head over to wingedhussarpublishing.com. Check out all their great historical works. Keep an eye out. Sign up for the newsletter so you get all the information on their historical stuff, plus the info on Craig's series and the Wild West Exodus stuff. And if you're going to order anything, make sure you put the code D6G in there and save 5%.
His board game collection is expanding faster than the universe. His blood smells like paint. He's a fluff gamer, not a power gamer. But he's also a power gamer, so don't get any ideas. He once lost a game just to see how it feels. He's the most interesting gamer in the world.
I don't always listen to gaming podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the D6 generation.
Okay, well, welcome back. And of course, as you all know, we've got Ross Watson here, and a long-time friend of the show. He's been on...
Hello.
Back, Ross. And Ross is in the middle of a brand new project that he's very excited about, and we are very excited about. That is the Accursed RPG. And so what we wanted to do, what we thought we would do, is leverage Ross. See?
Yes, leverage. Nice word.
Great buzzword.
Thank you. Get the Crackerjack RPG writing team that he has become a part of and get the entire team on here to talk about the Accursed RPG, what it is, who they are, how the whole project develops, and really beginning to end, soup to nuts, what's going on here with Accursed.
Right.
And so we would like to introduce. See, we're multilingual as well. Yeah. John Dunn, welcome to the show, John.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Hey, you're welcome. And Jason Marker, welcome, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
And let's begin. So first, of course, we always like to establish the bona fides of our guests. And
nice.
Ross, what have you been up to lately? What have you been up to lately?
Well, I've been on the show several times before, so I'm going to keep this very short and sweet. I'm an RPG and, I'm just a game designer, actually. Been involved in a lot of stuff. Most recently, Shadowrun Sprawlgangers, which is a miniatures game for Catalyst Game Labs. I was involved with Star Wars Edge of the Empire, which is the new RPG for Fantasy Flight. And before that, I spent a long period as the head honcho of the 40K roleplay division.
Nice. I wish I had the achievement noise for you here, Ross. I think you need a few of those. What about you, John? Well, let's just start from the beginning, John. Let's start with John, and we'll go to Jason next. So, how did you guys get started in gaming, John? What got you to become? When did you first start identifying yourself as a gamer, and what games got you in that way?
Well, let's see. I was a nerd from a very early age. Let's just set the baseline there. In third grade, I started playing AD&D.
Nice. What color was the box?
Kind of brought me into it with his kids, who were all high school age. So I was, the little kid sitting amongst these, 16, 17-year-olds going, okay, so what dice do I roll now?
Mm-hmm.
And after a couple of sessions of that, I started gathering kids at school and, playing more D&D and then expanding into other games and, went through the gamut of the 1980s TSR products with Marvel and Star Frontiers and all of those materials. And then started expanding out beyond that once we were into high school so that, by the time I graduated high school, we'd probably played well over 100 different systems, buying pretty much anything we could get our hands on, playing it at every moment we had a chance to.
Nice. That's quite the selection. So virtual fist bump for Star Frontiers. Love that game. That was awesome.
Any excuse to fling dice, right, John?
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Jason, how about you? What games got you into the whole hobby?
Well, I started with Redbox D&D when I was in junior high. Like John, I was a nerd from a very early age. My dad got me into Star Trek and Star Wars. My very first movie was Star Wars.
Nice.
Mine too. Excellent.
And my dad also got me into the Toho monster movies. A lot of Godzilla. A lot of Sunday afternoon. After church, watching Godzilla, watching Godzilla stomp the hell out of Tokyo, and then my dad would look at me and go, this is based on a true story. So, my dad was into sci-fi and monster movies and stuff like that, and he got me into it. And then in junior high, I had a friend named Brian Hamlin. He had the Redbox D&D, and we had a sleepover at his place way out in the back of Beyond in Central Ohio, where I'm from, and we sat up all night in a tent and played Redbox D&D, wherein I played a fighter named Fleetwood and just got my ass handed to me by a rust monster.
Nice.
From there, in my tiny little Central Ohio town, we had a surprisingly good game store with an exceedingly good and very sympathetic guy who owned it named Wayne Birch. And he got me into a lot of other games. I started playing a lot of Palladium stuff. And that's pretty much it. I've gone from there.
Nice. Well, that's great, too. And again, D&D was a founding part of both. Not a surprise for two RPG designers, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
And me, too, actually.
Right.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, pretty much ditto for all of us here. So now we know how Ross got in the industry. Again, go back to listen to awesome Ross Watson episodes earlier to get those. But John, how did you go from game player to game designer? How did that path happen?
So in the mid 90s, the RPGA used to support a lot of games that weren't just D&D.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote adventures for cons for a lot of them. And that was a lot of good practice and gave an opportunity to work with a lot of different editors, even though it was an environment where, you weren't being compensated for it, really. So after doing that for a little while, I took a break, went to grad school, worked in the real world, and then decided that, hey, I wanted to do this some more, and I started working with the Fan Pro crew on the Shadowrun Missions campaign, which at the time was free downloads, and I eventually ended up taking over that and developing that. And, you know, when you write and hit deadlines consistently for people, they notice.
Yeah, right.
And then they said, hey, why don't we start paying you to do this, which was really cool.
Nice. Oh, nice. That's awesome. And what was your very first project?
In terms of amateur stuff, it would probably have been a Shadowrun adventure for a convention. In terms of professional stuff, one of the 4th edition books, either Augmentation or Arsenal, they came out in publication in a different order from the order that they were written originally, so I don't remember which one would count as first.
Oh, very cool. Jason, how about you? How did you get in the industry?
Largely by accident, which is an answer that aspiring game writers hate. Years and years ago, my wife and I were living in St. Louis, and I was attending the St. Louis Community College at Forest Park, basically to take advantage of their photo dark room and their photo department, because I was a photographer at the time. And one of the classes I took, just to take some classes and to keep me out of the apartment, was a creative writing class. And the final for that class was to write a piece of short fiction and submit it for publication.
Oh.
Didn't have to get published. You know, you just had to do it. You just had to, buck up and write a story and submit it to, for publication. And I had sort of written like a thumbnail of a story based on a Ramon Perez illustration in Rift's Lone Star, which is their mutant animal book that came out in the late 90s. So this would be
post-apocalyptic Texas.
Pretty much. Yeah. This was in 98 or 99. And at the time, Palladium had just started their Rifter, their quarterly magazine.
Right.
And so I wrote this story called 3 Little Words, and I sent it in, and much to my surprise, they published it.
Wow.
It was published in Rifter 8. It was really, really short. And Rifter 8 was a Halloween, a Halloween issue, and it was sort of I don't want to say it was a horror story, but it was a very, very sad story. So they thought, oh, this will go great in the Halloween issue. And from there, I did a bunch of freelancing for the Rifter until about 2007, when when the entire photo industry in the city of Detroit here went belly up.
Ooh.
And I shuttered my photo business, and Kevin hired me full time at Palladium.
Nice. And so they've been there ever since?
No. I was at Palladium for 2 years.
Yeah.
Wherein I got laid off, and then Ross was foolish enough to hire me at Fantasy Flight.
Nice. And so you've been there ever since?
Yes.
Okay, great.
As a freelancer, yeah.
Right.
As a freelancer.
Right. So let's cover some of your highlight, because you guys have both been in the industry now for several years or more. What are some of your sort of big projects that people would know of and be like still looking at now or coming out soon? John, what are some of your big things?
I worked on a number of the books for Shadowrun 4th edition, which is, now since 5th edition's coming out, most of that stuff is fading from the limelight. But most of the core books for that, I had some involvement in at one level or another. And then after that, I worked on a number of the 40K games with Ross and other folks at FFG. I did the character creation rules for Black Crusade and bits and pieces of a number of other books. I also was lucky enough to work on Edge of the Empire with both Ross and Jason. And Through the Breach for Malifaux. I think we've all worked a little bit on that.
Nice.
Yes, we have.
Mm-hmm. Very exciting. So, Jason, how about you? What's some highlights that didn't touch base with John there?
Well, my very first professional project, and honestly, I think the thing that I'm the most proud of, I'm sinfully proud of it, is I brought the new Robotech RPG back to market with Palladium.
Nice.
Oh. I wrote more than half of the Shadow Chronicles core book. I wrote Macross. I wrote Army of the Southern Cross, and then when I got laid off, I was in the process of writing a trilogy that would have replaced the Sentinels.
Oh wow!
And I'd also made plans for comprehensive Starship books.
Yep.
And a bunch of other things I wanted to do with Robotech. From there, actually, Ross hired me on the strength of my Robotech work because Ross is a huge Robotech nerd.
Oh yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, and it was really funny. I when I got laid off, I essentially crawled into a bottle of wild turkey for a week, and hung out in my garage and turned wrenches on bikes and played with my band. And then I started sending out my CVs and doing all this, trying to find a job. So I just, frankly, I'd never heard of Fantasy Flight before. I'd send him my information, and Ross gets back to me with sort of a boilerplate, thank you for your interest in working for Fantasy Flight games, sort of that, don't call us, we'll call you kind of thing. And then about 5 minutes later, I get another email from Ross. Oh my God, are you the Jason Marker? You wrote Robotech. Oh my God, I love your work.
Awesome.
So I kind of went from there.
Yeah.
And at Fantasy Flight, who I have to say has been the best professional experience I've ever had, was working for Fantasy Flight. I worked on Rogue Trader, and I did the character creation rules for Only War. I worked on Black Crusade. I think I did the how to play the game in the Game Master section for Black Crusade. I've done a bunch of the source books for Black Crusade. I've also done a little bit of Shadowrun 4 work, Malifaux.
Nice.
I'm trying to think what else I've done here. Star Wars.
Yes.
Edge of the Empire. I kind of have a reputation as a Starship guy, and a guns and gear guy, and sort of like military organization.
Yeah. So
I did Starships and Vehicles for Edge of the Empire, as well as a bunch of the source books.
Nice.
So yeah, that's what I've done.
Busy.
So
and just sort of like other personal stuff.
So I have to ask.
Somehow forgot to mention something that's actually kind of relevant.
Oh, go ahead.
Since we're going to be talking about Accursed eventually, I should probably mention that Meliorvia is my company. We're the ones that are going to be publishing Accursed, and I did the Hope Preparatory School line of superhero products through that. That's a Mutants and Masterminds and Icons setting.
That's right. Oh, good. I'm glad you mentioned that. It's kind of a big thing. Awesome. And I'd have to ask now, given the amount of Robotech love that's currently in the virtual room here, between the three of us, how many copies of RPG Tactics
review? Because I don't get included in this particular. But
well, I don't know if John. Well, how between the Robotech fans here, how many copies of RPG Tactics was ordered from Kickstarter?
Of the miniature game?
Yeah, the miniature game. Did you order one? I got one.
Oh, well, that's awesome. I really hope that it turns out as good as it looks, because it looks awesome.
It doesn't have to be good rules wise. It just has the miniatures, Ross. That's all I'm saying. Little Vertitex. Just anyway.
Yeah, I'm actually a playtester for it, so I can't say too much.
Oh, see
about that. So
well, there you go.
Are you?
Yes.
You got to wrestle him down later. All right, so John and Jason, you've been doing a lot of talking. We'll let Ross on the mic for a second here. So, what's up with this new thing? How did you guys get this idea for Accursed?
Well, this is a really interesting story because after I got laid off from my video game company, I was working with Vigil on Darksiders 2. Then I formed a consultancy for dealing with development and production of games for various companies. And one of my clients actually wanted me to talk to them about an idea for a dark fantasy setting for a potential RPG that they were working on. And I thought it was a really interesting challenge because dark fantasy is a particular genre of RPGs that I think is, well, it's been done before. I mean, there's Ravenloft and there's all the White Wolf games of the past and so forth. So it was very difficult for me to put something together right away, but I did put my mind on it, and I came up with this idea that eventually became Accursed. And when I turned it in to the client and talked to them about what I wanted, the client said, "Well, that's a really cool idea, but we want to do something different." So now I had this great idea that I'd built for Accursed, and I said, I've wanted to do something with Jason and John for years, and this would be an awesome time to take this great idea that I think deserves more development, and let's build it together.
Okay, and how did Jason? How did you get brought into this whole thing?
How did how did I get brought in?
Yeah,
brought
how
into
did
the Accursed project?
Yeah.
Just basically, last year John and Ross and I were, we should totally make a game. That'd be totally awesome.
Yeah, we spent like 6 hours at Gen Con sitting around drinking, going, yeah,
we should
3 more
totally
beers
do
and this will be
that.
perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Much to my wife's chagrin, because she was there for half of it.
Interesting thing is, I can tell you that exact same conversation probably happened in almost every booth of almost every restaurant in Indianapolis. Those guys are here talking with us right now.
Right.
I mean, that's how it works, right? That's what those booths are for.
Right.
Yeah, so Jason and John and I we had just basically made a pact that we were going to come up with something together, because we really like working with each other, and we felt like we could build something really unique, capitalizing on our talents. And so when I brought this idea to Jason and John, I said, I think this is the idea we've been waiting for. It was really it was wonderful for me when both of them looked at it and said, yeah, this is pretty great. We want to make this happen.
So we're going to get into the details of the background of Accursed and what it's about in a couple seconds, but what's like the 30-second elevator pitch for this thing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, okay, Accursed is a dark fantasy setting for Savage Worlds. Mm-hmm. And it is a setting in which you are playing basically monsters who are being depended upon by the citizens of a world that has been conquered by evil. And you are being depended upon to fight back against the dark forces that have taken over their lives. It's I like to say it's a combination of Hellboy and Ravenloft,
nice.
Solomon Kane and Castlevania. is the elements I think are probably the most interesting that would grab people's attention and say, this is what this game is about. Those are the stylistic elements of Accursed.
All right. Now, how did this? So, John and Jason, when Ross pitched this to you, this concept, were you both like, yeah, this is something I want to work on, or how did you guys feel about the background and the ideas?
John?
From my perspective, there was actually a fair bit of back and forth. Yeah. There were a couple of elements that Ross had in an early stage where I said, okay, I like that, but what if we go this way instead? And his receptiveness to that kind of interaction really brought a lot to the table, because it meant, while he had a grand vision, which is fantastic, it also meant that he had a flexibility to it where he wasn't going to be wedded to one true wayism, and because I've encountered that before too, where somebody just has a brilliant idea, but it has to be done exactly to their specifications, which can be just unbelievably frustrating. Right. So with this one, it was clear that we're going to all be able to contribute to it and develop it and, put our own hooks into the meat of the setting so that it really became a shared project, just rather than just one guy's perfect idea.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that was one of the things that attracted me, was Ross wanting to give both John and I ownership of it, ownership of the creative aspect of it, and yeah, it is Ross's sandbox, but he wants us to definitely make our own castles in it.
Oh, cool. So, yeah. Now, before we get to the more details about the game, I'm really curious. How are you guys dividing the work up? Is it like different aspects of the game you guys are working on, or each you taking different elements of the universe, or how are you guys slicing this up?
Well, we are definitely all three contributing to the overall design of the game. There are certain roles we've kind of fallen into, though, along the way with the development of the book. I would say Jason's role is primarily like quality control. I mean, he does a lot of writing as well, but he's kind of the guy who will point out all the little pieces of the puzzle that need to fit together exactly right. John has sort of become like the lead editor, marketing guru, and production manager, because he knows all the numbers. And I have taken on the role of the lead developer and the art director for the project. And we're working with some really top-notch artists and graphic designers on this project. So, that does take a lot of my time as well.
Ross also gave me the role of lead stink eye, which goes along with quality control.
It does.
I would imagine it's actually a subset of those duties.
Yeah.
No question.
Nice. So let's get into the details of Accursed then. So, Ross, you kind of gave us the high level of the genre here. Does it, if someone, what genre is it? Do you have like a one-word answer for that question? I mean, is it modern? Is it alternate history? Is it future?
Yeah. Dark fantasy.
It's dark. Yeah, dark fantasy is the approach I like to use. I like to compare it in tone a lot to Solomon Kane, Robert E. Howard's world, where there was a morality to it, but it was also full of some pretty epic heroics against incredibly dark villains.
Right.
And we wanted to build Accursed as a place that kind of made you question, what does it really mean to be a hero? Right. So the core of Accursed is you are playing a person, a man or a woman, who has been transformed into a monstrous form by a witch's curse. So you might be playing as a mummy, or you might be playing as a werewolf, or you might be playing as a living dead guy known as a revenant. And it is up to you to throw off the shackles of the witch's dark influence that spread across the land and reclaim this world, which we're calling Morden, from the darkness that it's fallen into.
Oh, very cool. Now, is this is it near past? Is it present? Is it future? I mean, what are you running around with guns as a werewolf, or what's going on in that?
Well, again, I like to kind of fall back on that Solomon Kane Castlevania feel. There's definitely guns. I like to say that it's kind of got a technological level that's close to early Civil War in some aspects. So a lot of people are running around with black powder rifles, and there's certain alchemical combinations that can be created, and they're experimenting with airships and things like that. But it is very much fantasy in that you are opposing monsters, and there's magic, and there's people that need to be saved, and there's layers that need to be cleansed of evil, and monsters that must be fought. So I think we're sticking very close to the tropes of dark fantasy while adding in a few elements that bring it into a more unique place, which is the firearms and whatnot.
One of the things I'd like to add on to what Russ was saying and talking about the characters is that the transformation into an Accursed is due to the witch mark that the witch who created them impressed upon their body. And the witch mark can take a number of different forms. But what's important about it is that the Enochian religion believes that everyone who has this witch mark is cursed and that their souls are damned as long as they bear it. So the characters are either considering whether they're going to embrace their damnation and grow in power as one of these monsters, or whether they're going to work against that and try and find their way to redemption somehow.
So it's not, you're not locked in as a character to, not locked in is the wrong word, but you're not always theming that you're going towards the good side and fighting evil. You can, is that morality question in play the entire campaign, and you can go either way?
It absolutely can be.
Yeah, we like to not restrict people into exactly what kind of things we want them to play. The morality of Accursed allows for, if you want to play, a virtuous character who is, going towards good all the time and absolutely trying to attain a level of heroism, not unlike a knight or a paladin, you can do that. However, if you feel like your character would be driven more by the darker urges and he would kind of use the witch's power against them, then absolutely he might, explore more about how his witch mark might unlock new abilities to strike back.
All right, cool. And what do you guys think about? I mean, I can tell with the witch mark and stuff, there's some really unique angles in this thing, but at the same time, it's a genre that's been pretty has been explored before. What's, from each of yours perspective, what is the really unique hook? If someone said, what makes Accursed so much different than X? What is it from your point of view?
Jason, you want to field that one first?
John, would you like to field that?
Hard question.
Jason would not like to field that.
I have a very complicated relationship with that.
There's an answer right there for you.
The big thing I would like to say that makes it unique is just the choice that's presented to the characters from the get-go. They have the opportunity to embrace the darkness or to try and work their way towards the light. That's really a very clear development path. I mean, aside from the fact that, yes, you're playing monsters and it's in a fantasy setting, which has been done before but hasn't been done a lot, there's also the notion that you might not want to be a monster, you might want to escape it, but you might need those abilities just to be able to survive.
Yeah, my favorite part of the setting is that it does sort of, again, challenge that idea of being a hero. And it brings into question, is what you fight for more important than what you fight against?
Right.
I would say one of the things I like the most about the setting is the idea of redemption. Mm-hmm. The Accursed were made to slaughter the innocent.
Right.
And now they're, working that sin off. by trying to help the people in Morden, or at least some of them are.
I think it's cool. I think it's very cool. I think it's a really neat angle. So the background. So it sounds like you guys have defined the background really well. I think I got a clear understanding. Craig, you got a good understanding of the background so far?
I have a great understanding of it.
All right, so let's get into my favorite part. Although the background's always important for RPG, the mechanics, right, Russ? The mechanics.
Are
they innovative?
The innovative mechanics.
Right.
Well, we chose
go
the
ahead.
Savage World system because we really like the fast, furious, and fun play that it brings to the table. And it allows you to be very creative and be very open. I also really like a cinematic approach, and the Savage World system is very good for that. Now, the unique stuff that we're bringing to the mechanics, we're kind of actually still in development on a lot of these projects, so I'm not going to get into too much detail.
Oh, I knew you were gonna be sneaky on me.
We can't give it all away right now, but absolutely, we are looking at some ways to bring some unique elements of Accursed into the Savage Worlds mechanics. You heard us talk about the witch mark earlier, and the witch mark is a glyph upon the Accursed's body. It grows more baroque and complicated as you grow in power. And Savage Worlds has different levels of play, from novice to veteran and beyond. So a novice's witch mark would be much less complex than a veteran's. And whenever you move between those ranks, your witch mark would give you new powers and abilities. You unlock new things that you can do with it. And we're looking at different ways to use that in the Savage Worlds system.
Very cool. How do you guys, Jason? How do you feel about Savage Worlds, and what appeals to you about that system?
I am deeply, madly, and truly in love with Savage Worlds, and I have been ever since I started really getting familiar with it. I played Deadlands back in the '90s when it was out. Deadlands and Hell on Earth and all of that. I love Savage Worlds' simplicity. I like how easy it is to convert things to. I've taken all of my games that I initially ran. All my Robotech games are now Savage Worlds, Savage Robotech games.
Cool.
I just think it's a great system. It's fast. It's compact. It's elegant, and you can do anything with it. And it can it's got such good bones, and you can make anything. You can make any good game with it.
Yeah. And
I'm excited that we're using Savage Worlds for this game because it's going to be great.
Nice. What about you, John? What makes you love Savage Worlds?
So I am a deep devotee of the Torg role-playing game from the early 90s. And there's a bit of an ancestry between what Pinnacle has done with Savage Worlds and stuff that West End did back during the heyday of Torg. And I really like that linkage. I like the idea that you have a core rule mechanic that's really very straightforward, but I also like the idea that there are a lot of ways to easily tweak that mechanic. So while you're generally going to have a dramatic system or in a dramatic setting, you can also adjust things in a very straightforward fashion so that you can go between, a mobster movie and a science fantasy setting with staying with the same system and not having to relearn everything.
Yeah, well, Craig and I have reviewed Savage Worlds on the show before, and we're big fans of it as well. It's a really solid system. So, not surprised to hear you guys say that. Let's talk about this a little bit. So, all three of you said how really one of the things that makes Accursed unique is the characters themselves and the fact that you're playing a monster who's seeking redemption, and so I got to think that the character creation process is really going to be it's always core to an RPG, right? But it's going to be really particularly core to this game. What kind of is one of you more in charge of character creation than anybody else, or is this sort of a collaborative thing? And what's going to really set this apart? What am I really going to be focused on as a player when I sit down and start thinking about my Accursed character? What are some of the first things I'm going to be thinking about?
Well, this is a really great question because, Jason and John talked earlier about how they were able to take ownership of different parts of the game. And one of the first ways in which they really made a big impact was on the types of characters you can play. When I came to them with the idea, I was kind of thinking, sort of like the creature commandos, the typical, sort of hammer horror, universal monsters type approach. And when we started talking, these guys gave me some even more interesting ideas. So what we came up with is this concept of the Accursed. And what you have is this world called Morden that was invaded by a army of darkness led by these witches. And when they crashed into the outer regions known as the Outlands, they took all those people and turned them into the Accursed. They made them not unlike the Mongols, where they would take the indigenous people and turn them into a sort of a shock fighting force.
Right.
They did that with the people of the Outlands and transformed them into the Accursed and used them to conquer the rest of Morden, basically, in this massive final battle. Unfortunately, fortunately for Morden, the witches' Grand Coven was sundered, and most of them went back over the mountains, and their grand army broke up. So now you have all these people; their homes are gone, they've been transformed into monsters, and they really have nothing left to do with themselves except become bandits or adventurers, or they can also join what we've come up with. It's called the Order of the Penitent, which is our structure for the default mode of play in Accursed, where you are trying to join the resistance against the witches and break them out of the country. So there's 6 different types of witch breeds, which is what we came up with as the name of the different types of Accursed. You guys, John and Jason, you could probably take it from here.
Well, I was just going to say 6 is what we're going to have at the initial point, and we're linking one of each of those to one of the witches that were involved in coordinating the invasion.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And so at this stage, we've also decided, okay, 6 is a nice number for 2 reasons. One, it's a good amount of variety, and the other is, hey, there's 3 of us, we can each take 2.
Exactly.
So we've each taken a pair of them that we're focusing on, and we've, put out some information about this through the Accursed RPG blog site, where we're updating and releasing sneak information on it.
AccursedRPG.com.
There you go.
Yes.
I think it's safe to admit who's working on what at this point. So I have 2 of the different witch breeds where I'm working on. One is called the Mongrels. And these are people whom a witch named the Chimera took them and surgically and magically has modified them so that their bodies incorporate animalistic parts.
Oh, wow.
So, the one that Ross can't stop raving about is Gorilla Man, who's got, giant gorilla arms.
He's got ape arms and bug eyes.
That's a great class. I don't mean to call it class, but that's a great concept. Can a player kind of mix and match whatever, or is there some templates they got to choose from, or how creative can they get with their?
They can get awfully creative with it.
Yes.
There needs to be a little bit of interaction with the game master so that the player doesn't come back and say, so I want him to be a turtle shell, a lion's bite, a scorpion's tail, and strength of an elephant.
The Mongrels are
a little unbalanced.
The Mongrels are a combination of like a cyborg and one of the creatures from the island of Dr. Moreau.
Nice.
And that's our kind of very unique take on it. It's a person who's been grafted with animal parts that and used as a weapon in a war.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that's one of the 2. The other one that I'm working on are going to be mummies. And mummies, I have to credit Ross for the core idea of this because I think it's fantastic.
And the mummies are awesome.
And that's kind of giving them almost a Transformers bent, where you have the mummy inside, but then you have the mummy sarcophagus wrapping around him, providing him additional armor and protection, and possibly some magical abilities as well, based on how well developed the witch mark is. So that essentially, you've got this mummy, which is tough and powerful, but then he's got this exoskeleton, essentially, that just grants him all kinds of other crazy abilities.
That sounds really cool. Now, how do I make my mummy character different from yours? What are the different aspects I can give him to make him a little, unique?
Well, you're certainly going to be able to have the opportunity to investigate different magical approaches and different alchemy elements, but you're also going to be able to do, typical Savage Worlds creation where your core attributes are going to fluctuate, your skill interests are going to fluctuate, and then just what focus you're taking your sarcophagus in.
Oh, very cool. So, Jason, what are you working on?
I am working on the Vargar, which are the werewolves in the setting. They are from not Russia. They are
not Russia.
They are from our settings, not Russia.
That's Jason's worldview. There's Russia and not Russia.
Pretty much. There's Soviet engineering and all other inferior engineering. So our not Russia is Stepangrad, and the Vargar are werewolves, and they're sort of Cossacks. They're sort of
very cool,
uncouth. The Vargar are interesting. They're going to be a lot of fun to write, and they were created by a witch who calls herself Baba Yaga. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with who Baba Yaga is.
Yep.
Yeah, she's the ancient sort of Russian, morally ambiguous witch that goes about on a hut with chicken legs.
Yep.
And so I've already done a little bit of writing about Baba Yaga on the blog, which is of course accursedrpg.com, and as well as the Vargar. I'm also doing the golems, and the golems are essentially Frankenstein's monster.
Oh, nice.
But they're not all like flesh golems. They're stone and iron and straw and anything that'll hold a shape. Anything that'll hold a shape and contain the soul of a mortal.
Oh, nice. So they've had their souls ripped out of their normal body and placed into a golem? Is that basically how it...
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And the thing I love the most about the Vargar is, we are taking the approach that Accursed is kind of a world where all the fairy tales went horribly, horribly wrong. So the Vargar are these werewolves, and of course, what are wolves known for in the fairy tale? Well, they're known for being ravenously hungry. So part of the curse of a Vargar is that they are never actually satiated, and they're sort of constantly having to restrain themselves from devouring flesh when it's available.
Right. Yeah, the Vargar are essentially there's an old painting called the Meeting of the Cossacks, where a bunch of Cossack leaders got together and wrote a letter to, I want to say, the Sultan of Turkey, and basically told him to get stuffed. And it's a hysterical painting because it's all these Cossack leaders sort of sitting around, and one guy's writing, and they're all laughing about it, drinking vodka, and there's all this sort of feasting going on around them. And that's sort of how I envision the Vargar, except taken to the nth degree, sort of turned up to 11.
Nice. So, Ross, what are the two that you're working on?
I am working on the Dampier, who are the half vampires. They are charming rogues who are as deadly with a blade as they are with a word. They are the creation of the Blood Witch, and they're basically going to be the type of character you want to play if you want to be like a face, if you want to be able to interact with people, if you want to be an agile, roguish type. I am also working on the Revenants, and the Revenants, they really can only describe this in one way. The Revenants are the Crow. They are people who are living dead, who have kept their sense of will and their sense of self about them by focusing on one particular desire to the exclusion of all else. And 99% of the time, that desire is revenge.
Isn't Jonah Hex like that?
Jonah Hex is a good example of, he's not undead, but he's a good example of a type of character who would be a great Revenant.
Or maybe Spawn, right? Spawn's kind of like that too, right?
Yeah, Spawn. Yeah, I guess that would also be true. They are the creation of a witch known as the Morrigan, who is set up in Cairn Canaan, which is our not Scotland, not Welsh
Ireland. Forget the Morrigan.
And she has a massive cauldron that she creates undead from, known as Cauldron Born. And those who emerge from the cauldron, who have somehow managed to keep their sense of will about them, those are the Revenants.
Oh, cool.
One other thing worth pointing out about the Cauldron Born is that they were effectively the shock troops for all of the armies when they swept over the mountains to invade Morden. So all of the witches actually had access to the Cauldron Born. So the Morrigan was pretty busy in the early stages of the invasion.
Yes. Of course, naturally, if you need people that can do things other than shamble, that's where the Accursed fit into that plan.
Oh, very cool. Well, that's a very wide selection of character options. That's really impressive. And I can tell you guys have put a lot of work into that. It sounds like you're pretty far along. So where in the overall scheme of things of how far till the finish line, where do you guys think the project is right now in the overall development cycle?
We're pretty far along. We have got a lot of artwork already built. We've got a lot of the world building and the development Bible already built. We're in the process of doing the main writing for the setting right now. I would say we are probably a good 75-80% down the road.
Nice.
We just need to get our last ducks in a row before we get ready to launch the Kickstarter later this year.
Well, that's what I want to ask you. So I know on your site it says there's a Kickstarter coming. So you're getting close, and you're thinking later. You guys have a time? Are you looking at Q3, Q4, something before January? What, you guys got a gut check on where it is?
We're looking late Q3.
Okay, great.
we have pimping our products. We are actually going to be doing some seminars at Gen Con this year, talking about what's involved in freelancing and professionalism in the industry and working with licenses, since we like to think we all know a little bit about that.
Okay. Excellent topics.
Yeah.
And because we're going to have an audience in the room, we figure that's a good opportunity outside of things like this to talk with people who are not as active on the internet and go, hey, incidentally, you might want to check this thing out in about a month or so.
Nice.
Right.
Nice.
Clever.
Are you going to be releasing any? I've seen any artwork on your. Is going to be some sample artwork and other things coming out soon? Or
Oh yes, we have a fantastic artist by the name of Alberto Bontempi, who is doing some really great work for us, and we have a graphic designer named Kevin Childress, and he's designed our main logo and our witch marks and all the other graphic design stuff for it. We have things that we are going to show off. Absolutely, we're just kind of waiting for the right time to do that.
Right,
We also have the map of the continent.
Oh yeah.
Which we have
Beautiful map.
just gotten the finals in on that, but we want to wait for something special before we start sharing portions of that. That was done by Jeff Preston.
yeah. Nice. Well, it sounds fantastic, guys. I really can't wait to see more. It definitely sounds. There's such a nice spread of character choices there that always gets me excited. Craig, do you have any other questions you want to do before we wrap this up?
Well, I'm wondering, guys, like, what are you most excited about in this last stretch of things that you've got? Like, what are you looking forward to wrapping up and finishing? And then conversely, is there anything looming ahead that's got you a little nervous or excited in a nervous way, maybe?
Well, I've never actually launched a Kickstarter before. I've participated in a few others, but this is going to be the first one that I have really been behind with Jason and John. I'm not going to speak for them, but I will say that for me, that is kind of an intimidating thing, and I'm crossing my fingers and my toes to make sure we do it right and we don't end up. It's very important to me that we make sure and satisfy all the people that contribute to our Kickstarter.
I actually think Ross can speak for me in that regard because, yeah, it's a little bit terrifying to make sure that you meet the expectations that everybody has going in and that you also manage to draw in a large enough audience to meet the funding goals of the Kickstarter project.
Right.
I would imagine the opportunities of Kickstarter are great, but you really are putting yourself out there at the mercy of the market. So I can see how that would be very not frustrating, but
Intimidating.
This moment.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to take a different tack, and I apologize if this sounds flip, but I'm not really worried at all because the fact that I have John and Ross on my team.
We're handling his worrying.
You guys are handling my worrying, yes. No, I mean, I've worked with you guys long enough, and I've been in the industry a little while now, and we're going to put out a great product.
And that is absolutely true. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at our team, you've got the guys behind Shadowrun, Star Wars, Robotech, and the 40K Roleplay, all working on the same product together. How can it not be good? How can it not be awesome?
That's the spirit.
There you go. It does sound awesome, and I'm really looking forward to digging more into it and seeing what little bits you guys leak out. And I'm definitely going to go to the Gen Con website and sign up for some of those panels right now.
Let me say one other thing, because we talked about what we're terrified of. We didn't get a chance to touch on what we're really jazzed about.
Yeah, what are you jazzed about?
And I'm really looking forward to the adventures and the adventure seeds that we put into this book, because I'm really pumped up about having, if you're familiar with Savage Worlds products, you're familiar with their plot point campaigns. Mm-hmm. And those are usually an extended campaign that isn't fully fleshed out to the nth degree, but is more than adequate to keep you gaming for somewhere from, 3 months to a year.
Yep.
And I'm really looking forward to putting together a compelling plot point campaign that gives the players a chance to really explore the world and possibly transform it in new ways as well.
Very cool. I'm also looking forward to getting all that material in one place and sort of putting it together. I mean, John and Jason know this too, but having worked on over 60 products at this point, there's nothing better than actually getting it all together in book form to hold in your hands.
Exactly.
And I'm really looking forward to that.
I'm really looking forward to taking these. How Ross said, this is a world where fairy tales have gone horribly wrong, and I'm looking at playing with that, and I'm looking at sort of taking those fairy stories and sort of the real world legends of golems and werewolves and Baba Yaga and all of that, and twisting them and making them about, from Morden, from the Accursed world. I'm looking at, really, twisting those ideas and people's ideas of what a werewolf is or what a flesh golem is.
Yeah. A good example is we have a character who's like an assassin in the world that everyone knows and is kind of scared of. Her name is Little Red Cap. And she's called that because she dips the hood of her cape in the blood of her victims.
Nice. I love it. Well, guys, thanks so much for joining us today and giving us all the details about Accursed. I can't wait to learn to see more in person. If people want to know more about this thing, where do they go, guys?
AccursedRPG.com. Or we're also on Facebook as Accursed RPG and on Twitter as Accursed RPG.
There you go. And what if they want to reach out to you individually? Do you guys have your own Twitter feeds?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jason has one.
I have my Twitter feed under Jason Marker or Amalgamated Fiction. Actually, my website, amalgamatedfiction.com, has links to my blog, my Facebook site, my Twitter feed, and my Tumblr.
Nice.
And I am rosswatson.blogspot.com.
And for John Dunn, I am at meliorvia.com. That's meliorvia.com.
Awesome.
Keep track of these guys.
Yeah, keep an eye on this, guys. This will be huge. And guys, thanks so much for taking the time out, and best of luck with your Kickstarter.
Oh, man, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us on the show.
It was great.
Worlds to conquer, foes to vanquish, violence to sow, and medieval crops to reap. The whole world of gaming at your fingertips. The D6 generation. Born to game.
And now we've reached that point in the show where we want to talk to you about Conquistador.
Oh, yeah.
Games. Mm-hmm. These guys are the games they create. They focus on theme. They're all about quick, fast, but themey play. Mm-hmm. And of course, their big ones right now, we're looking at Road to Enlightenment with all the scientists, and then you've got the New Science, which even more science.
New Science is an excellent game. I love that one.
Indeed. And then you've got Tomorrow, which of course, on the brink of collapse. How do you save the world? Well, you've got to pick and choose who's going to come and who's going to go.
Right. But that's not all. Our friends at Conquistador also sponsor a great podcast, the Game Design Roundtable. And it's not just board game designers. No. It's got video game designers in there, folks from games like, Civilization, maybe RPG designers. You got Colby Dow's been on the show. Fred Hicks has been on the show. Jake Rodden's been on the show from Telltale Games. Walking Dead guys on there. You name it. Great game designers talking about game design for game designers, but also for people who are just interested in how, the sausage gets made, if you will.
Oh, that's a very unfortunate analogy, but still, it makes sense. If you are an inside baseball, is where you should have gone, Russ, kind of guy, that this is the podcast for you.
Right. I've been watching too much Game of Thrones, all that sausage going on there. Anyway, check out cqgames.com for all the stuff, podcasting, great games, and more.
From Conquistador.
This is Total Fangirl. Regular Jane most days, total fangirl when the moment strikes. Han shot first. Starbuck is a guy. And Lestat, now there's a vampire. Hey everyone, this is Nicole, your Total Fangirl. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicole Wakeler and check out my blog, TotalFangirl.com. This week's shout out, it's not too early to think about Extra Life. Join Team Cranky or any team you want, so long as it's Team Cranky at extra-life.org today. This week I have a guest that's coming to you from an entirely different country. We have gone across the ocean over to the UK, and I have someone who is a cosplayer. The Doctor Who folks will like this. She's a Dalek cosplayer, has done the most amazing costumes, but she has also recently actually had a little mini made of her in her Dalek costume. I'd like to welcome Bex Hemington to the show. Welcome, Bex.
Hiya.
So thank you for taking the time to chat with us today.
That's cool. I'd love to chat with all of your fans.
And it's funny to me, I was saying the day that we're recording this is the day that Kate Middleton is in labor at the hospital.
Yes.
So all the news is just Kate Middleton. So by the time we air this episode, we'll all know who the next heir is. But right now, it's like that's all that's everywhere. What's the baby going to be? What's the baby's name going to be?
I know. It's so annoying.
I know. It's not particularly nerdy for those of us who are the nerdy side of things. We're like, can we move on from baby news?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're a cosplayer and you do these really unique Dalek costumes, and you're part of an organization that's sort of a charity in the UK. Can you tell people a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm part of a fantastic group called Charity Dalek Squad, which was founded by my friend of mine, Terry, and he's just the nicest bloke you could ever meet. And we get asked to go to events, sort of like, museum days and things like that, and we basically spend the day being quite geeky and putting on a show for all the kids, and they genuinely believe that we are the characters, and it's just the most amazing experience. And then you raise all this money for charity, and it's just fantastic to be involved in that.
And now, how did you start? Like, what started this? Why Daleks? Are you a huge Doctor Who fan, and what made you decide to start cosplaying them?
I think I was watching series 3 of Doctor Who, and it was the one where the Doctor and Martha were in Manhattan and Dalek sect turned human, and I was sat there going, "Oh, this is like seriously awesome. I need to have something like this. I wonder if it was a chick. I wonder if the dress replicated a Dalek." And then I drew it. I was like 14 at the time. Bought a base dress, put the stuff on it, which is the old one. The one that's now up on my page and everything on Facebook is the new one that I made myself. And I wore it to an event, and it was just really popular, and it sort of carried on from there.
And it's a fantastic costume, but you have different versions of your Dalek costume that you've done over time.
I do, yeah.
How many have you done? How many different ones?
I've done Supreme, Special Weapons, and Ironside.
And they're all very cool. Tell everyone real quick what your Facebook page is so that they can find you to see all this stuff.
It's literally just Bex Hemmington, Dalek Princess. So if they search Dalek Princess, they'll probably find me quite quickly. It's kind of obvious by my picture that it's me.
That you got the right one, yeah. Now, the other thing that came out of you doing this Dalek cosplay, which is part of what made me say I've got to get you on this episode for the D6G, is there is now a little metal mini fig of you that a company is selling that makes miniatures that's actually you as the Dalek.
Yeah.
How did that come to be?
Well, I've known Carl, who made the figure. I've known him for, 3 or 4 years. And he sent me a message through Facebook, and he just went, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to make a figure of you." And I sort of thought, oh, yeah, all right then, sort of thinking, well, how many people in cosplay and on the internet say these wonderful things and never follow through, and sort of forgot about it. And then I got sent a picture like a few months later of sort of the provisional figure, and then quite quickly it all came about, and then there was this army of figures, and then they were going to be painted, and then he was like, "Oh, I'm going to release them in June," and that's when we were like, "Right, do it on my birthday because it'll make sense." And yeah, it was really overwhelming because I sort of thought, "Oh, it's probably not going to fall through. It's not going to happen." Mm-hmm. And I sort of thought that's not no disrespect to Carl. That's not because I don't think he wouldn't do it. It's just I know so many people who would say things and it just never happens.
Right. Things fall through easily on the internet. You have the best of intentions, and then things just don't happen sometimes.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. And I think it's just when people sort of they want to make you happy and impress you kind of thing, and you sit there and you think that's really sweet, but at the same time I'd rather you were just honest.
Yeah, if you're not going to do it, don't do it.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
does he have a company that he makes miniatures with, or is this like what is he doing with this mini now?
Well, he has his own company called Gretwood Miniatures, and he makes various figures, and he's made figures of the 11th Doctor and Amy Pond, which of course he's not called them that for copyright reasons, right. But you can tell. So, and he's made quite a lot of like miniature figures, and I think he sells quite a lot of them. So my one is on, general sale to the public, and yeah, it's quite creepy.
Is he like a one-man show, or is he doing this all thing start to finish himself?
I think he does, because he sort of builds the provisional figure, and then he sends it somewhere to have a mold made, and then casts the mold. And then for the one that I received, he had it painted by somebody else. But I think he's painting most of them himself now. So
people can buy them either pre-painted to look exactly like your costume, the one that you're wearing, or they can they buy them like just plain metal too, so they can do whatever they want with them?
They can buy them unpainted, so they can paint them themselves. They can have them painted in what's being called princess colours, which is
cute,
to match me. Or they can have it in any combination of colour they want if, they want someone else to paint it for them, because it is tiny, so it's kind of like how on earth do you paint this? It's like impossible.
Yeah, a lot of my husband does paints things, and he does tiny little miniatures, and I watch him try and paint the eyes on figures, and every time I paint eyes, they look like the people are like demented zombies because they're giant white blobs with little black dots. He does it looks totally like eyes, so I can't, but he can. So you got to have that little steady hand to be able to do that stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, you're also doing something in line with this mini to raise a little money for charity. You told me you were doing something with a photograph. Tell people about that.
Yes, it was something I came up. It was an idea I came up with Carl. That I know that quite a lot of some of the big name cosplayers sort of started doing, like not for charity, just as sort of like a bit of page promotion. But I said, I think it'd be really nice if I got a picture of me in my dress with my matching figure, and I could do signed prints. And then people can have them to go with the figure, because if people are buying it, because a lot of people will be buying it because it's me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I said to him, I think this would be a really good idea. So what I'm going to do is I have been meaning to sort it out for like months and just never done it. I'm absolutely terrible. And there'll be like, a set amount of images to pick from, and someone can pick them, and there'll be a price to pay because of like the postage and stuff like that.
Sure.
But all the money like that I get for the physical photo, that sort of thing, it's just all going to go in a pot and go to charity, because I just love giving to charity. It's just so nice to help other people.
I think it's really cool that you've taken something that was for fun and for kicks and that you really liked with the Daleks, and you turned it into this really interesting thing where you've got a model made and you're helping raise money at events, and even the pictures, and so that's fantastic. I love to see that kind of thing happen with fans,
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just it's nice to sort of put yourself aside for someone else, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just even if like say like 10 people buy photos, so then it's like £10, and just be like, yeah, here you go, have some £10 for charity.
Hey,
I'm doing my bit.
You know what? Every little bit helps. If everybody found a way to give £10, that would add up to quite a bit over time. It's a little pieces we all do that help out.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, Bex, for coming on the show and talking about you being a Dalek miniature, which is really cool. And you said again, tell everybody again, just in case they missed it, where they can find you if they wanted to see all the pictures, because her costume is just amazing, and she's got pictures of the model too, so you can see what it would actually look like.
It's just go on Facebook and type in Bex Hemmington Dalek Princess, and if you just type in Dalek Princess, that'll probably be the easiest way to find it, and you'll be able to tell by the picture.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bex.
You're welcome.
It's Vic! It's Vic the Viking!
Vic the Viking! The Vikings are coming! That's right. It's time to talk about the War Store. Bringing the war to your door for a decade and more.
Oh, yeah. Our friends at the War Store do a great job of getting you fantastic prices on fantastic miniatures when you need them, where you need them, who you need them. And you know what's great about the War Store is they show up to these cons. They're there on the street for you.
They are.
You go to TempleCon, they're there. You go to Gen Con, they're there with just tons of stuff. The War Store's always there. They got their own con in the fall. Don't forget.
Don't
make sure you don't miss the War Store weekend. I know, right? These guys they know miniature war games. They carry tons of miniatures. They carry great prices. They have the latest stuff up there. Be sure to follow them on Twitter for the latest information.
That is where you're going to get all the news.
It really is. You will not be disappointed. Make sure you check out all their great sections on their website. On the left-hand side, just scroll on down. They've got a fantasy miniature section, sci-fi miniature section, steampunk miniature section, historical miniature section.
And don't worry about getting the wrong category because everything is like cross-referenced in there. Right. And if you go to steampunk, you're also going to find some sci-fi stuff. So it's almost like any category it could possibly be in, you're going to find it there.
Yeah, War Machine hides out in both the fantasy and the steampunk section.
Yep.
That settles the whole debate. It's both.
There you go.
There you go. So great stuff. Head on over to thewarstore.com. Check out all the latest action going on there. Be sure to check out the War Store weekend. Start planning that now. That's coming up. That's coming up this fall, November 1st through 3rd, 2013. Don't miss that out either. So check out all the action over there, thewarstore.com.
I'm Rafe Hollywood Granger, and this is the Hollywood Minute. All right, welcome to another edition of the Hollywood Minute. Another beautiful New England morning, about 7:50 a.m. on a Sunday. I've got my cup of hot coffee here. I'm uploading the data files for Lord of the Rings Online through its normal update. We'll see if there's anything going on in there. I think there's the Summer Festival. So this is going to be a little mini HD Achievos in gaming. So uploading some files. I'm going to check out Lord of the Rings, see if any of my friends are on in there. I'll bake some pies, maybe do the little Summer Festival, and see if everything's going on or what's going on in there. That'll take me 35 minutes. Oh, I was listening to the my Hollywood Minute from a couple episodes ago, and Endless Space. Yeah, I played 8 seconds of that and instantly could not stand it and deleted it. So that Jedi mind trick worked, and then that game drove me nuts. Still having a blast playing Don't Starve. I highly recommend that to everybody out there. Nice little game. It's hard for me to describe. It's not. I think it's an indie game, but it's not a side scroller. And you just go around in this little world, and you try to survive as long as you can. But there's all these different combos you can make to survive. So I've been playing a lot of Don't Starve. I was doing really well. I made it to like day 15. When I stupidly let it get dark because I was playing a character that she has a lighter, so I just get used to if it gets dark, I like light up a tree or something wherever I am if I'm not near my campfire. And I realize that I'm talking a lot of insider baseball that anybody hasn't played Don't Starve. But there you have it. It's my Hollywood Minute, dang it. But anyway, I have a lighter, so I get lazy. Well, it got dark and a monster killed me. I had little health yet because I hadn't baked food to heal myself, so that was a bummer. Let's see, what else? Haven't played any Prison Architect in a while. Maybe I'll do that this morning. Wife's away doing some yoga, so I got some time to myself. And might do a little Lord of the Rings. I did completely mask up my Colossal Conquest. Doc of Discount Games has been totally hooking me up. And it's been awesome. He's just been sending me stuff. It comes in, poof, he sends it to me. And so I've got some new Grey Lord Turnian Light Cavalry. I've got some new NIS. I got some new other stuff coming in that I'm keeping secret from Wakeland. It has been so fun smashing his Jack's faces with my Colossal. they just walk up and eat the two of them for breakfast. That's been just pure joy. That joy will end the minute he builds his Stormwall Colossal, but it seems to be interesting. He seems to be going in a different direction. He's building up his Convergence of Chris models. Starting to get Gen Con wistfulness. I'm not going this year. My wife and I have decided we just got some home projects we have to get done around the house, and that's taken up our extra cash and time flow. but hearing everybody talking about Gen Con, getting Gen Con's bringing a tear to my eye. I'm going to miss all of you out there that I normally get to see. That's for sure, and I'm sure you're all going to have a blast. Let's see, as far as books I've been reading, I'm in between fantasy books. I just finished Ender's Game, which I absolutely loved. Finished that on Audible. And now I'm in between books. I do have that book that Russ likes. I think it's Joe Abercrombie. The one with Glockter and stuff. And I don't know, for whatever reason, man, that book's just not doing it for me. So I need a good fantasy read. If anybody's got any suggestions, send me an email at hollywood@the d6generation.com. That'd be great. Oh, by the way, people have been asking me, too, what my Twitter handle it is the D6G Hollywood on Twitter. And Jimmy Django's been a little bit more active, too. There's some more blog posts and whatnot up there, too. People have been asking me that in email, so it's just easier if I broadcast that out. But yeah, if anybody's got a good sci-fi/fantasy book read, I'd be interested in that. I've got a lot of like corporate self-help business books on my list to read, but I haven't downloaded that yet. I'll probably have some time. Looking forward to it. Got a little vacay coming up. We're going to go to Hershey, PA, and take the kids down there, have a little family vacation. So I'm looking forward to that. So having a little bit of a hard paper book to read might be kind of fun in that department. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Got a light week. Work's been keeping me pretty busy. Had a really sleepy June work-wise, but July is ramping up big time. So hey, no need to wax on when there's nothing to wax poetic about. So until next time. Oh, I almost forgot. I got something else cooking here I'd like to share with you guys. So remember, I'm in Portsmouth, Film City Central. So man, I still have my documentary in mind to do, but instead of supersize it, I'm going to downsize it. So if you recall, I did a failed Kickstarter, which I learned a lot from. I'm still kind of angry about it, actually. So I sought to raise $40,000, and the feedback I got was, you're ridiculous, Rafe. It doesn't take $40,000 to do a documentary. Well, I beg to differ. This is what I'm angry about. I'm not angry about the second part. When I did my research on Kickstarters, what a lot of documentaries do is they raise money to rent the lenses and rent the cameras, get out to location, and shoot some video. And yeah, you can do that anywhere from like, $2,000 to $6,000, depending on your location and the amount of people you need. But the real money is in editing. So could you imagine taking 4 to 5 days of Gen Con gaming plus 5 gaming layers, which was the scope of my project, and have, 100 to 200 hours of footage? Well, that would all need to be edited. So about 20 to 20,000 of that was editing costs. Well, what a lot of documentaries do, because they know that they put that $20,000 into the budget for a Kickstarter, people are going to fail. They just raise the money to shoot, and then they do a second Kickstarter to say, hey, we got all this wonderful footage, and then plus people were complaining that they didn't, with my idea, there was no video footage to look at, so imagine I'd have all these little snippets and all this wonderful stuff, and then I could kickstart another $20,000, and that was my error. What I should have done was been like, yep, this is just a shoot, and we're going to have to kickstart a second shoot to put it in the can. It was my stupidity to think, hey guys, wouldn't you want to all pay for it at once and know that if you kickstarted $35 that you'd actually get a video, rather than if you kickstarted $35 it might just pay for me to go out somewhere with a camera and not have any money to edit. So that's what I'm kind of mad about, is I tried to go, in my brain anyway, the story I'm telling myself was the quote honest approach, not takes people's money and not be able to produce a film. Hindsight being 2020, I probably could have done it the reverse way. The other thing I regret is if I had done Indiegogo or any of the other alternative Kickstarters, then I would have had the $5-6 I could have flown out and done what I'm thinking about doing now. So that I have a beef about to this day. But the beef I don't have about was people are like, hey, no offense, Rafe, but you've never done a film before in your life. How are we going to know this is any good? And that's true. So the advice I was given is, and I still get emails to this day, they're like, don't give up on the idea, is I'm thinking about, not even think about it, I'm going to start whiteboarding it with David Farr and a local filmmaker and up in Portsmouth, and old Andy, and what I was doing is I was watching a TV show, and I'm like, dang it, there's a market for that, but it's about what we do in gaming. So I'm going to do a whiteboarding session, and then my plan is to go ahead and kickstart again. but this time it'll be to just film, with the goal of like 1 to 2 episodes. It's going to be an episodic type of thing. And my goal is to just shoot 1 or 2 and throw it up on the web. And with the ultimate goal of seeing if, Hollywood will want to pick it up. To that end, my contact in Portsmouth knows a scriptwriter in Hollywood. We pitched the idea to him. He said he thought it had legs. He also knows some people in the reality TV world. He's like, hey, get some video down, get some snippets down, shoot it. If it keeps his interest, being a non-gamer, then he thinks it could have some legs to go from there. Now, I'm not saying that it goes to the scriptwriter onto the History Channel, but it's kind of exciting to know that you floated to, quote, somebody in Hollywood, end quote, and they don't think the idea is totally stupid. So keep your eyes out for that. No time frame. I don't even have the whiteboard meeting scheduled yet, but I'm excited to see what I can come up with. All right, and on that note, until next time.
Hey, now it's time to talk about our friends at Game Salute. These are the guys that bring you the games that small studio designers are trying to design, and Game Salute comes in and backs them up with the power of a major publishing house, helping them through the wily maze full of minotaur-laden troubles of Kickstarter, helping them through the publishing cycle, helping them get into the stores, helping them get exclusives with stores, actually providing the stores, all these things that Game Salute do, and they create some really interesting, exciting games. Craig, what are some of the ones that are on the deck right now from Game Salute?
Right now, what you're looking at is you've got Chaos and Alchemy, a quick-playing card and dice game. You've got Magnum Opus on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that's about. There's a gem, though, so that sounds good. Zoo Fu. When the lights go out at the zoo, the animals gather around the samurai zookeeper in a battle of ultimate animal combat.
Nice. And don't forget, Game Salute, they power games that you've heard of, like Alien Frontiers, Sunrise City, Keyflower, Cartoon I've talked on the show several times, fantastic family game. I mean, they are involved with the Blackwater Gulch Kickstarter. These guys are there, making it happen, bringing great games out there, and these new games that are working on now are also look fantastic. So check them out. Head on over to GameSalute.com for all the latest hotness in the gaming world.
You in the market for deeper D6G intel? There's only one place to go for your contact in the off weeks. What you seek is located somewhere in the lost chapters. Go to the D6generation.com for further instructions.
Welcome back. Now, since we have Ross, the consummate professional, as it were, and Craig, who is now also a gaming industry professional.
Only according to some.
I thought, well, actually it was Ross thought. It was Ross's great idea to talk about professionalism in the gaming industry and what does it mean to you or me.
And, Ross, I am interested in a little bit of the background, too, as to why this is on your radar recently.
Well, it's been something I've been thinking about for quite a while. On my blog, rosswatson.blogspot.com.
What's that blog again, Ross?
Sorry?
What's that blog again, Ross?
rosswatson.blogspot.com.
Excellent.
I have a series of posts about professionalism in gaming. And with things that have happened in the gaming industry recently, there's been a lot of Kickstarter fraud, and like the game company EA was voted the worst company in America 2 years in a row. And I mean, there's just been a lot of things that have happened that have made me look at the industry that I'm a part of, and that, well, really everyone who plays games is a part of it. But look at it and want to take a little more critical approach to getting things done. You know, it's too easy to look at a game industry and think of it as a casual place where you just sort of, you know, oh, we're making games, it's okay for us to be, you know, lackadaisical. And I think that attitude needs to change.
Oh, cool. I think it's really interesting, I think, to look at these kind of things and kind of hold our, well, first identify what do we mean by this? So you get some great posts in this, Ross, but what is professionalism? I mean, what do we think when someone says he's a professional or she's a professional or that company's very professional? What do we mean by that? Like, what's a thumbnail definition?
Well, Geekly McNerdigan did give us a great definition in the rapid fire, which is a code of ethical conduct. I like to say that professionalism means that you're held to a higher standard.
Yeah. Anyway, go on.
I like to think that professionals are held to a higher standard than amateurs. That if you're doing business with a professional, you can rely on him to have integrity, to be able to produce quality content on time. There's just a certain standard that a professional is held to that is not true for amateur work.
Craig, would you agree with that? I mean, what do you think?
I would. Now, the interesting next question is what makes you a professional? What raises you to the level where those expectations become reasonable to hold?
Well, there's an expectation, I think, these days that if you have a company or if you are a representative of that company, that you are or should be professional. For me, there are certain qualities that I like to say a professional exhibits that makes him a professional. And for me, that's integrity, courtesy, and respect.
Uh-huh.
And if you can display those things in your business dealings, I say that you are most likely a professional.
Gotcha.
That makes sense. Now, of course, there's a lot behind that, and I think it's going to be interesting. We're going to dive in here in a minute and talk about maybe some specific examples in the industry we cover, which, of course, is gaming, of how these can manifest or lack to manifest, I guess, in these situations. But what are some examples, Ross, like as an individual, like what are some of the things you kind of expect an individual to be able to have?
Encountered that underscored a lack of professional.
Well, I think, and this is where I think the listeners are probably going to find this conversation, maybe slightly more interesting, is because it is sort of a look behind the curtain at business dealings in the gaming industry. Not just, I'm not a marketing guy, right? I'm not trying to tell you why you should buy my game. I'm telling you what it's like for the people who make the games themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's the perspective I came to. It was like, what standard are we holding ourselves to as game designers, producers, as writers and art directors and things like that. A lot of it has to do with, you asked for some specific examples. I like to say, when you respect the material and you respect the people that work on that material, you will deal with them in a professional manner. And a good example for that, Craig knows this very well, is that you should really, if you're going to work professionally, you need a contract. Now, that can be for full-time employment. You have your contract you sign when you join the company. If you're a freelancer, they give you a contract per project. You should always get a contract between you and your employer, just so that everything is laid out. All the expectations on both sides are described, and you understand what the recourse is if something unexpected happens. If you do not work with the contract, if you just sort of, well, he's my friend and I'm just going to work for him because he said he's going to hook me up on the back end, that to me is the sign of an amateur.
Yep. Right. And it invariably will end up in a not happy place.
Yes.
A key always. Part of that is expectations as well.
Yeah, the contract manages your expectations.
Exactly, which is huge, because I think when you're entering into any of these business arrangements, if you are doing it in a half donkey sort of way, you're allowing all kinds of interpretation of tone and gesture and he said that he was going to watch out for me, so I know he means 50%, and just that then you are setting yourself up is basically what you're doing.
Yeah. Now, I think, Craig, you could probably talk a little bit about, you've done quite a few jobs as a freelancer. Yes. Can you talk a little bit about the different expectations that have been communicated to you from your employers and how those have been in different styles?
It goes everywhere from the loosest, which was literally no contract and no oversight, but with a very professional, successful company, which was very confusing. So I never really knew what I was. It was kind of like, hey, write us some of this stuff. And I was like, okay. As opposed to you go to the other end, like, for instance, Fantasy Flight, where I'm doing 40K or Star Wars, and all of a sudden you've got Bibles landing on your desk, and you've got rule books, PDF rule books sent to you with your name emblazoned upon the pages, so you can't share them out. And like, the contracts stipulate exactly what you're going to be asked to do, right down to the word, what you're expected to do. Their style guides are huge. The fact that you're working with a company that has a style guide means that they
take it seriously enough that they know exactly what they want you to do and what they don't want you to do, and the presence of editorial oversight, meaning people who know how to edit, is huge.
And for me, this is the quality of respect, is taking things seriously, taking the people you're working with seriously, taking the genre you're working with seriously. Even if you're writing something for, comedic value, even if you're writing something that's just sort of fun and funny, if you don't take it seriously when you're working on it, you're not gonna turn in a very good product, and people are gonna know.
Yeah, absolutely.
The thing is, the game industry is really small. I mean, people think that there's just tons and tons of companies out there, and there are quite a few companies, but there's it's so small. What I say is like, all it takes is one time for you to screw up, one time for you to be that guy on the internet and break your NDA, and before you know it, everybody knows about that.
Right. Yeah, you're done. Yeah.
So I just like to say, when you're working in the game industry, you got to be aware that you're going to be held accountable. And I think it's something not enough people understand, that if you don't act professionally, it's going to impact you negatively. It's going to make your career shorter and less fulfilling. But it's also going to impact your work. And there's people. I mean, you can ask people out there that have donated to a Kickstarter that failed to launch, and they're very upset. They're where their money has gone. They don't know. And this is exactly the kind of thing that I want to avoid. If I'm a game designer and I talk to somebody at, say, Gen Con, the last thing I want to have them say to me is something like, "Well, I wasted my money on your project."
Right. Yeah.
That would be bad.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, that brings up a good point, Ross. You mentioned Kickstarters, and we talked about people, how they can be sort of individually professional. And I think it might be kind of interesting to go through the different ways that we touch as gamers, different areas or things that we get involved with, that we touch points on, that should exude professionalism, and what do we look for in those things, and how do these ideas of integrity, courtesy, and respect, and those kind of ideas translate to these. Maybe the first one we could talk about a little bit is maybe easier. Some things we talked about on the show before is like dealing with retailers.
Yeah, so absolutely.
When you go shopping, and it's interesting too, because you see this in all kinds of stores. It's not just gaming. You can go to a little tiny mom and pop, meat market, and maybe have a great experience, or maybe not, or a butcher. Or you can go to a gaming store and have a really professional one, and one what's not. What are some, like, when you walk in the store, what are some feelings that immediately make you feel like it's professional, or it's maybe amateur hour?
Well, I mean, integrity is like the biggest one that we deal with when you're talking about the retail space. You want to make sure that guy, who's taking your money is giving you the value for your dollar. Like, if he's not going to sell you a damaged game or an incomplete game, he's not going to say he ordered it and then not put it in, right? For example, a lot of things that Myriad Games does really well is they communicate with their customer base. They're very open and very honest, and they'll work with them to achieve what it is that they want. It's for me, that is a great. That's part of that courtesy thing I was talking about. Mm-hmm. So not only do they have integrity, they have courtesy. They will work with you, and they will try to find ways to enhance your experience. That, to me, in a retail space, that's what's really important to me. Is like, do I feel like I'm going to get value for my money? And do I feel like that they take my business seriously?
Yeah, I think I think it's interesting, because I'm trying to think of how, like one of the things I look for is just when you go into a store, any kind of store, you want to be. I think it comes down to courtesy and respect. So it has to be clean.
Yes.
And that clean, I think, comes from the respect for the customers, right? You want it to be good experience.
Well, if they don't respect the store,
right,
then
the space,
what are they going to do for you?
And exactly right. And it also has to be, I like to be greeted. I like to acknowledge that I've walked into your store. I'd rather not see you sitting behind the counter reading a book and just ignoring the fact that I even entered. And then the other thing, the real big thing is product knowledge, which is an area, have enough, take the time to know this stuff. I'd like to be able to ask. I can't tell you the number of times I'm a pretty knowledgeable gamer. But there's oftentimes someone's mom will come in and say, "Hey, my son or daughter, or my boyfriend, or my husband, or whatever, or my girlfriend in some cases, play these games. she likes sci-fi. What should I get her? You know?
Yeah.
And they'll be like, oh, how about Monopoly? They don't know. And it'd be nice, some stores do know web very well, like a Myriad Games or other ones, but it'd be nice for these stores to kind of know that stuff. I think, again, it comes back to being able to provide really high quality service to exceed expectations, right? That's the other key. You got to, as a professional, you should definitely meet, but usually exceed expectations.
You should aspire to it, certainly.
Yeah.
I want to do a quick shout out to a local store in Austin called Dragon's Lair, which is just an amazing game store. And they do a lot of things that you just described. They greet me when I walk in. If I have a question, if they don't know the answer, they'll point me to someone who does.
Yeah.
It's clean, it's well lit. I feel like I get good value for my money. And if I ever bought something or brought it up to the counter and it was damaged, they would say, "Oh, we have an undamaged one you can buy. It's over here," or they'll take 10% off or something of that nature. So yeah, absolutely.
That's great. Now, one thing that's sort of interesting is, so I think people go shopping so often in their life that you kind of intrinsically know what makes a store professional. So maybe it's kind of obvious, but when you go to other areas, maybe it gets a little more complicated. Like maybe a web retailer, right? So when you go to shop online, I think, I personally have things, and I've started noticing about myself. When you walk into a store and it feels kind of skeevy and you don't want to buy anything there, you kind of like, no, right? On the web, what's the difference? What makes you feel like you're at a professional website? And then also, what kind of levels of professionalism do you expect from the service department when you actually order something online?
I hold online retailers to a slightly higher standard with customer service because you cannot physically walk in and take something back.
Right.
Right. So if I want to be able to email them or call them, I look for, do they have that information available, right? Is there somewhere I can go to their website and click on it and find very quickly how I can talk to someone to address my issue? Web retailers also, I think there's things they can do to be more professional in terms of just their web presence. Of course, there's your website shouldn't look like it was created back in the 90s.
Right. Agreed. It should definitely have a modern look and feel.
The interface.
It should be easy to navigate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think also you're right. It should be easy to find a way to connect to them. I don't like when there's absolutely no apparent way to connect to them at all. Like there's no email address, there's no phone number. That always makes you kind of nervous.
Yeah. I'll just throw this out there. Amazon.com, trying to find a customer service number to call.
Right.
Not easy.
Hey, try Google. Try to find Google's number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try to find an email for Google. Seriously. I mean, so it's nice to see the retailers do that, and I think that makes them feel more professional. I think, again, a clean website, easy to search, and I see defined search features good. Good categorization, product images. I know it sounds trivial, but a lot of times they don't have those.
I don't think that's trivial because especially if you look at a lot of European and British sites, there are no, if you're looking for historical miniatures, for instance, even in America, historical miniatures in general, you're going to find sites that have no pictures.
Right.
That's hard for models.
It's extremely difficult. And you're looking for when I was looking for terrain, I was looking for terrain to do some Uncharted Seas stuff years ago, and I was just shocked at the number of websites I kept running into with no images at all. And I think I don't even know how you can do a business because I would never in a million years order something I couldn't at least look at. I mean, during the break we were all talking about goggles and steampunk goggles, and Russ, you found two different pair that you liked, and you were on both of them. You were looking at the pictures, zooming in, going, I don't know, I really want to look at, I really want to feel it. I mean, and that's looking at a really high res picture when you can't get a picture at all.
Right.
I don't know how you expect.
Right.
No, I mean, the more effort needs to go in, and I think Ross is right when you're talking about an online. The customer service needs to be there because that's all we have to go on. We don't have have you showered to go on. We don't have did you greet us when we went through the door to go on.
Yeah.
All we have to go on is your website and then how you react to our questions before we start giving you our money.
Yep.
I just like to point out that for all the things you can say about say Games Workshop, they have an excellent reputation for handling issues through their customer service.
They do. We'll get to those guys in a second because that's a good point. I wonder one other thing about web retailers before we move on to publishers, because you're right. Games GW does a fantastic job with that. I like some communication between after I place my order, I like to see at least some emails back and forth that something's
like a verification.
happened. Yeah, because I hit the order button. I know they've got my money because PayPal or my credit card says so. And then I would like to see an email saying, hey, your order's being processed. And you know what does a great job with this is Domino's Pizza. So Domino's Pizza has invented this thing called the Pizza Tracker. Have you seen this thing?
No.
So you go to their website and you order a pizza. And then this little meter comes up, and they've got this Atlanta guy, and he looks like he's a claymation dude making you pizza, right? And it says stage 1, and it has the guy's name. It says Dan is currently making your pizza. And then after it's made, it'll say, Dan has now put your pizza in the oven, and the next stage blinks. And then it says, your pizza's now out of the oven, and then it says it's being delivered. You can actually see each stage of where your pizza is.
Is it always Dan, though?
No, it's not. It's actually whoever makes it. And I happen to know this because the driver's names come on there, and I know all the I know some of the. I kind of eat a lot of pizza. So yeah, it's really a neat system, and I like that with my orders. Like again, we have this brand new sponsor, and I'm not just saying this because they're a new sponsor, but they are Miniature Market. Now, one of the things that's interesting about these guys is because Craig and I are consummate professionals. Before we took them on as a sponsor, I said, well, I got to order from these guys, so I ordered my Epic Striker from Miniature Market. Now, when I ordered him, I got the immediate email saying, "Hey, boom, we've got your order," and then, "Hey, boom, it's shipped." And days went by, I didn't get them. I'm like, "Well, that's a problem." So I emailed them. I said, "Hey guys, I ordered this about a week ago. I haven't seen him. I thought I'd be here by now." Instantly, I got a message back saying, "We shipped him. Here's your tracking number." I clicked it. Sure enough, my local post office, unbeknownst to me, had closed. And there was confusion at the post, and they were holding him in Hooksett, which is 2 towns over. So, like, it got stuck in the mail, but they immediately gave me that thing, and they got it back to me. And then after the customer service issue was resolved, they sent me a little survey that says, "How is our customer service?" Now, that level of support is something you don't normally even see in the gaming industry. Normally, that is something you see maybe from a really higher-end company. So it was really neat to see that level of support and service coming in, and it makes me feel very confident and excited about their level of professionalism.
But isn't that sort of sad that you would say that that's not standard? Because isn't that standard pretty much everywhere else?
It is. It's becoming more so. Well, like the survey at the end and stuff is standard in larger companies. I don't know about smaller ones like some of these game companies. But we do have there are other companies that do this similar thing. But I think it's a great. I just was really pleased to see that, and it made me even more confident to order from them again, knowing, hey, no problem if I don't have to worry about getting lost because they'll have the tracking number and they'll get it to me. I like to see the tracking number actually on the initial email.
Well, there's one web retailer that I really enjoy ordering from because of the way they handle things very professionally, and that is the War Store.
Yes, another fine sponsor.
Neil runs a very tight ship. He has pictures for everything, and he follows up with you. And if there's ever an issue, you just call his number, and he will get it straightened out. Yeah,
I love Neil's response email, which is always because I just ordered from them too the other day. In fact, my daughter ordered her workouts from them, and he said Neil's immediate email: "A actual human has looked at your order and is processing it," which I love. And that makes you feel good too. And Neil's got the sort of the tongue-in-cheek thing, but it's going through, and that's what makes both these retailers feel good, and I feel great about dealing with them and supporting them. And I'll go back to them before other people.
Too, actually.
Yeah, Battlefoam's also great about that.
Another sponsor. We should mention that these are all
they are sponsors, but we're just picking them out of a hat.
But I'm not even part of the show. I'm just telling you, like on my own as a consumer, those are two people I consider professional.
Battlefoam's a good example of someone who actually makes their own stuff. So let's talk about the game publishers a little bit and what makes them feel professional. So what do we look for from a game publisher, and what inspires confidence from us that they're professional and they're going to treat us right if we have any problems?
Well, for companies, it can be really complex, the issues of professionalism. There's so many things that go into, being a professional at a game company. And I know I worked at Games Workshop. I worked at Fantasy Flight. So I'm going to try and break it down to like a couple of broad categories. The first category is like the product, the actual thing that the game company makes. You can look at a game company and sort of tell its professionalism level from the quality, the overall quality of the product. Do they make a good game? There's got to be some professionalism there if they make a good game.
Right.
Like sometimes this can be very surprising. It can be kind of like out of nowhere, like with Gale Force 9. They came out with Spartacus, and it was just awesome. And you're like, wow, I never knew these guys even made games. And sometimes it can be, sort of I won't name any names here, but there's times where companies have put out a game that they've had a reputation for quality, and then they kind of stumble and they put something out, and you're like, wow, that just really wasn't that good. And it does kind of impact how you look at them professionally. And then there's also like the question of the value for the money. And this has to do with like what the price point is, right? Just like if they give you, like, for example, in a role-playing environment, if you want to buy a book, right, and you want to buy, say, a hardcover book that's full color, there's a perception of value there, that the value for your money. If it's really good artwork inside, if the writing is top-notch. But the same goes, like, if you get a book that has, like, say, a really nice cover, and then you get inside and it's all like pictures of G.I. Joe dolls posed in various ways. And I am not making that up. There actually is a book that did that. You know, that makes you feel like, wow, what a bunch of amateurs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's like the actual product can be a way. But for me also, having, like I said, trying to give that insider's perspective, for me it's like how they treat their employees.
Yeah.
A good example is, you know, a few years ago, probably EA fell into this category where, you know, there was a reputation that if you worked at EA, they were just going to work you until you dropped, and they were going to pay you the least they could possibly get away with. And, you know, you were just a cog in the machine at best.
Yeah.
That perception has changed. I am referring to, you know, several years ago, the whole EA spouse email situation with them. But just to give you an idea of like kind of some of the things I'm talking about, does a company treat its people fairly? Do they get credit for their work? Do they you know, there's certain times that you have a company and they have a certain employee or creator that becomes synonymous with their work, like Reiner Knizia, right? You would never think of the games that he's worked on without his name attached to it, or you wouldn't think of Descent without thinking of Kevin Wilson, or you wouldn't think of Chaos in the Old World without thinking of Eric Lang, right? You know, and if the company treats those guys poorly after they make a game for you, that is also an indication of whether they're a professional company or not. Because it's all too common to see companies sort of treating employees like expendable ammunition. Right. They get the game out of them and then they're done.
Yep.
And it's happened in all types of game environments where you have a freelancer who, you know, maybe does good work, maybe doesn't. But if he doesn't get the credit in the book for his work, or if someone plagiarizes his content, if someone takes what he's worked on and changes it unrecognizably in some cases, you know, those are all indications that there's someone involved in that company who just doesn't know what they're doing.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure.
And I think we can all, you know, I'm not going to name any names because that would actually be unprofessional. But you know, I think we all know of certain examples that have occurred. And part of the reason why I'm trying to raise awareness of these issues is just because I want to get companies to start thinking about it. And I want to get people who are managers and who are, you know, VPs to start really thinking about, like, you know, ways to make the gaming industry more professional, make their companies more professional, because everybody wins if we take what we're doing more seriously, if we have integrity and we you know, we meet our obligations, we take responsibility for the things that we do. It's just going to be better for everyone.
Yep. Yeah, exactly right. And I think you definitely want to see a company that treats its employees fairly. I'm always, you know, whenever you hear about a major name in one of the companies that leaves, I always kind of wonder, does that mean the company's going downhill, or are they not treating the people right, or is he just looking for something new? You know, it's always hard to tell.
Well, and the gaming industry relies on creative people. Right. I mean, it really does.
Yeah.
And if you have a guy who's really creative and really strong as a game designer, and he ends up jumping ship to go work elsewhere, which has happened many times, you know, it's pretty obvious, you know, that it's something broke along the way.
Right. Yeah. Well, another thing too, I think, is, do they stand behind their product? Right.
Absolutely.
And I think this is where you mentioned GW, and I think GW's always been extremely strong at this. And that is that their mail order department's always been great. And they're really good about replacing parts that are lost or miscast or whatever. And a lot of other game companies are getting better about that too. I was pleasantly surprised. I ran into a little bit of trouble with it just took a while from Corvus Belli with Infinity. I got one of my models was missing a large ammo feeder. And the email turnaround time was just very slow. obviously the mail from Spain to here, I was going to take a while, so that part didn't bother me. But it just took a long time to get responses, and they were just busy, so they're very small. But sometimes when you're small, you feel unprofessional because as a consumer, I want my company to feel responsive to me, even if they are small. I try to be understanding if you're small, but I like to have responsiveness. One of the things I know GW is very responsive, and Privateer Press is a whole online form system. You go on. I was missing a part. I was missing a head. I bought a new model the other day and it was missing its head. I was like, oh no, from Privateer. So when
Troll was not very high on the list of any of these companies.
Right. Well, it's hard.
Volume, I know.
The volume these guys do and the amount of bits in a model is so I'm not super critical of that. But it would bother me if I think of all the models I bought, whatever company it is, whether it's Weird or GW or Privateer, I own so many. It's very rare for any of these guys to be missing a part. So I just buy a lot, so I get it once in a while. So, and I like Privateer. What they did, it's this fully automated system. I go online there, you type in what you bought, you type in what's missing, you hit go, it asks for your address, and then you get an email saying we've received your issue. It'll be resolved soon, and poof, it shows up in the mail like 3 days later.
I
nice.
want to give a quick, a quick story of a positive example.
Yep.
I did freelance work for Privateer Press, actually, on their Iron Kingdoms role-playing game, where they sent me a contract, and it was very clear what they wanted to do. And they had lines of communication that were always open if I had any questions. And I did have some. But they made it clear, like they actually read what I turned in. And they actually, gave back comments, which is always good to see because you never want to see a company take what you turn in and then never look at it until it's time to publish the actual book.
Right.
And then once the contract was completed, they paid me very quickly right afterwards. And they paid me everything I was due. And then they sent me a copy of the book when it finally came out.
Nice.
Those are all tick marks on my checklist of a professional company that it's good to work for, that I would do business with again. And when you are a freelancer, when you are doing business with companies like this, and there's a lot of, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners out there who would love to be a game designer, who would love to write for various games. So this is kind of one of the reasons why I'm telling you, there are certain people you do want to work for, absolutely, and it's because they show this level of integrity and courtesy and respect.
That's great, and you're right, and I think that's it's nice to see. And and the larger companies, by and large, do a good job with that, which is great. One thing I want to ask too, before we move on to some other areas, but in terms of how do you identify something as professional, is because this is sort of the new hotness, right? So Kickstarter, how do you know when you look at a Kickstarter, other than it's a company I know,
right?
And there's more and more of that happening.
There's more of that happening, so that makes it a little bit easier. But even if it is a company you might get nervous if it's their first Kickstarter. You're like, well, there's a lot of pitfalls in a Kickstarter, so even though it's a good company,
yeah.
When you look at a Kickstarter, like what makes you feel, Ross? Like, okay, these guys know what they're doing; they get it.
Well, on Kickstarters, it's really an interesting question to ask because Kickstarter is really where amateurs go to become professionals. Right. They're producing. Oftentimes, they're producing a product for the first time. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think probably the most important part of the Kickstarter is the fulfillment. Did they actually do what they promised they would do?
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen several Kickstarters that have done exactly what they wanted to do, and they sent out everything, even if it cost them in the end. Right. Even if it was.
There's that one cost of his house, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. But he fulfilled the promises that he made, and that is very high on my list. I was very pleased to see that level of commitment. But there's several horror stories out there too, though, of people that have used one Kickstarter to pay for another, or they've they took everybody's money and then disappeared off the grid.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just reprehensible. I mean, it's reprehensible for any industry, but it's possibly even worse that it's in the industry that I love and the industry that I call my own, because it makes it harder for people who are really trying to do real things with Kickstarter, not unlike myself.
Right.
It makes it a little harder for us, because there's guys out there who are going to take advantage.
Right.
And so, for me, fulfillment is the biggest deal.
I would say there's a couple things that you need to keep in mind going into it, first of all, because fulfillment is at the other end. And I think, Russ, what you were saying was, like, how do we know right off the bat, just looking at that Kickstarter page,
sure,
that we're looking at something professional? And number one for me is going to be editing. Proofread your page.
Yeah, because your Kickstarter is a resume for your product, right?
It is a resume, and I will tell you this without. I mean, and people, they roll their eyes and they say that's not fair, and this is 100% the truth. If there is a single typo on your resume, you are not going to get hired. Okay?
Because you didn't take it seriously. And if you're not going to take your resume seriously,
and I'm not, that's like all the time. I'm sure somebody out there went, "Oh, no, everything else on here is awesome." But 9 times out of 10, they're not even going to look closely enough to see that you're awesome if there's a misspelling or so. A very good friend of mine, his wife sent out a resume and she transposed 2 letters in the school district that she was applying to. And she's like an amazing fit. That resume didn't even get into the initial pile because of that. One of my good friends is the principal of my school. I go through this all the time. I've been on multiple hiring committees. In the gaming industry, I've seen it. In multiple different industries, and what Russ says is 100% the truth. That Kickstarter front page is your resume.
Yeah,
as
agreed.
I'm reading that, as I see the misspellings and the grammar mistakes, I'm immediately going in. I'm going from, am I interested in this mode, to how can I make fun of this mode? And I am immediately sending links to my friends going, "Hey, how about the first stretch goal is you pay for an editor?" You know?
Well, Kickstarter is asking you to trust them. It's asking you to trust them with your money, and they will make you a product. Yeah. And if you want to establish trust, you've got to, show people that you're going to take it, that you're going to respect the product, and you're going to respect the process. And that means putting your best foot forward. That means not having misspellings or a really bad video or those kinds of things.
I think a key element to being a professional, and I guess it's implied in all of the things we've said so far, but attention to detail is critical.
Agreed.
No matter what kind of professional you are. You can't, the software example of that is you can't just write a piece of code and throw it over the wall to QA and expect them to figure out what you did wrong, right? You got to have pride in your work so that you're daring them. It's like when you have someone proofread your paper or you're sending your work to your editor. You're sending your work to your editor hoping he finds things you missed, but it shouldn't be like, I didn't even bother to proofread it twice myself, and there's probably 20 spelling errors on the page. It should be subtle things he's finding because you should have at least had the pride in your work to get it really, and the same true as whatever you work on. So if it's your Kickstarter page or whatever you're doing, you need to have the pride and attention to detail to your work so that whatever errors you make are extremely minor, and it's clear that you are really focused on getting this done and done right.
And at the other end, when we're talking about fulfillment, I don't expect this guy who's never had a business before to hit the ground running like Sony.
Right.
Okay?
No.
But what I expect is good communication, because I don't care whether or not you've gone to business school. You can answer emails. You can updates. You can keep everyone posted on this journey, because everybody knows, especially for these newcomers to the industry, it's a journey and everybody's going to be on it.
It's transparency. It's
exactly. And my problem starts with you're clearly not treating it seriously when you're not. If you're, let's say, a year and a month late, let's go with that. Just pick a number out of thin air. Okay, if you're a year and a month late and you're averaging one update every 2 months, and the updates are like, "Hey guys, this is awesome. I've done this one more thing," or "Hey, I got a different contract with a totally new company. Isn't that awesome?" Okay, that's not what the people who gave you the money to start that company want to hear. They want to hear what is happening with their money and how are you working to fulfill what you promised to do. It's the transparency that Ross is talking about, and it's the communication that we've talked about before. And that's, if you keep, if this guy, who I am still trying for professional reasons to not mention by name, okay, was every week sending an update. Okay, really sorry guys, this is what's going on. I'm doing this. It's going to go out, blah, blah, blah. I would be like, okay, I'm kind of bent, but I mean, I understand. I can see you struggling. That's what I don't want to sound like a sadist, but I want to see you struggle. That's what I want.
Schadenfreude.
Transparency. Yeah. Not even that. I want to know. I want to have faith that there's a reason that this isn't happening.
Right.
Well, it's,
if I have faith in that, then I'm okay, because you're human. I'm human. I'd like my stuff, but a million things have happened. And it can't be, I had a cold this week, I had a cold next week, I got a cold another week. It can't, I mean, you've got to take it seriously, and you've got to be on there all the time with your communication.
This is a great point. It's all about integrity. It's all about, we understand that Kickstarters are places for people who haven't really done this kind of thing all the time, right? Mm-hmm. So mistakes happen, right? Things, there's situations come up, life comes up, the printer backs out at the last minute. But if they don't tell you about it, if they don't be honest with the people that have given them the money, that's where the issue comes up.
Yeah, exactly right. Great. So that's Kickstarter. We're running low on time here, but I wanted to kind of highlight some other things. I think we've kind of covered this, but of all the things we talked about so far, what kind of individual professionalism do we look for in like designers, writers, and artists? Are those totally different? Are they sort of the same we've already talked about? Or are there some other things we can focus on?
I think it all ties into the same. You need transparency. You need to have a commitment to your deadlines. All three of those the designers, the writers, and the artists all have to have, work strictly to that deadline. I think.
Yeah. Well, it's not about. It's not about talent. I mean, that's probably the first thing I would say. Mm-hmm. Is like I had an experience with a writer on 40K Roleplay who was just outstanding. I mean, he understood every nuance of that very, very complex IP, and he could write extremely well. And he just had tons and tons and tons of talent. What he didn't have, unfortunately, is he just couldn't work professionally. He couldn't understand how to hit the deadline. He didn't understand that complaining online about the book was a bad thing. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I had to kind of cut ties with that guy. And I still look back and go, man, I wish I could have kept working with him because of how good he was. So when we're talking about people who are creators of content, it has nothing to do with how talented they are.
Right. Well, I think that's a great point, Ross, and I think it's probably the best takeaway here is when you're professional, whether it's in your professional non-gaming related life or in any way, professionalism, you're right, it isn't really about talent. Professionalism is something that's very easy to learn and implement. It's really about taking pride in what you do. Now, the level at which you can succeed at your job is going to be based on talent, perhaps. But if you're not professional, you will not succeed. I don't believe, for exactly what you just pointed out. You have to be, because what's interesting about this is, my real job, my real life, I'm an engineer. Engineers build things, right? Happens to be a software engineer in this case, but I studied school for other kinds of engineering. And really, but all this stuff we're talking about, building games, you're all making stuff. And in order to make something, whether it's a bridge or software or a game, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of other people that are involved. And unless you are committed to doing what you say you're going to do, understanding what's being asked of you, your clear contract, and doing exactly what you say you're going to do, and then getting it done on time, then all those pieces aren't going to come into play. And anybody who's had any significant construction done on their house that involves more than one contractor has seen the horrible things that can go wrong when everybody who signed up to help you isn't doing things in the time and the way you thought you were promised.
You could end up screwing a lot more people than just you.
Right. Exactly.
By not being professional.
Exactly right.
And that's a great point. And my apologies, Craig. I hope I didn't ride roughshod over you there. I'm really passionate about this subject. So
it's good. It's a very passionate professional.
That's right.
Who's also talented. See, it all comes together there. Ross Watson, hire him today. So on that note, I think we've covered it was a great topic, Ross. I really had fun talking about this.
Thank you.
And I also want to thank you, Ross, for coming on the show.
Yes.
Again.
Spending your time with us.
Really appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure, guys. I would love to come back again in the future.
Oh, we'd love to have you. Now, Ross, if someone wants to find out more about what you're up to, what you're doing, where is Ross Watson today? What professional endeavor is he professionally endeavoring on? Where would they go to find that out?
Well, they could go to rosswatson.blogspot.com. That's my blog where I talk about various things that are of interest to me. And you can also check out my new project, Accursed, which is an RPG setting for Savage Worlds. And that is at accursedrpg.com. And lastly, I will be actually doing a seminar at Gen Con about professionalism in gaming. And that is at the Crown Plaza on the 15th. Yep. And it starts at 11 a.m.
Ooh, I can make that one. I'm going to try to come.
See, there you go.
Nice.
We're not kidding when we say he's passionate.
He's a passionate professional. All right, Ross. Well, thank you so much again, Ross, and we look forward to talking to you again in the near future.
And seeing
My
you.
pleasure.
Yeah, we'll see you at Gen Con.
Thank you very much, guys.
Awesome.
The D6 Generation Podcast. All of the mysteries of gamer culture revealed. The D6 Generation. Born to game.
And it's the middle of summer, and what do people like to do in summer but travel? We're in the heart of convention season right now. It's just on right now.
It's on like Donkey Kong.
Exactly right. And who better to travel with, especially to a convention in a faraway land, a place where you're not sure what to do between the convention times or before or after the convention times. What other cool stuff for geeky folk is there to see and do in this great city you're visiting that you don't even know about? Well, that's where our friends at Geek Nation Tours come in. Head on over to geeknationtours.com. Head on there, click on the upcoming tours tab, and they will show you all the great tours they do and have great samples of what kind of things they hit on those tours, such as these, Craig.
Well, we're talking, as you just said, we're in the middle of con season, so a bunch of these have already been closed. Of course, you've got the Hollywood Trek tour, which is going out in just actually next weekend. Teching, geeking out with at VidCon is coming up. Actually, is this weekend right now as we're speaking. But coming up and still booking, you've got Nova. You've got the DualCon, of course, which is out in Phoenix. Feast of Blades, and of the big one, not really it is a con, isn't it?
Totally a con.
Con in the name, New York Comic Con, or that even earns one of these, New York Comic Con.
Yeah, visit superhero sites in New York City, and of course, go to one of the largest cons on the East Coast, New York Comic Con. Great stuff. How about the Black Library in Canada? That'd be great. So check all this great stuff out. Head on over to Geek Nation Tours, click on upcoming tours, and see all the cool GNT hotness at Geek Nation Tours. Oh, don't forget, tell them the D6G sent you and get a cool Stitch D6G patch. How cool is that? It's cool.
Celebrate your geekiness. This edition of Jever Notice is brought to you by Rick from Joondalup to his long-suffering wife, Audrey. We've moved yet again and again, had to lug games, paints, miniatures, etc. to a new rental. Thank you for accepting it all with good humor. And thank you, Rick, for being there for us year after year. We appreciate it. Did you ever notice, however, that sometimes when you're dealing with folks, it seems like the rules don't apply to them? This has struck me several times over the past few weeks, and I was not going to mention it because I thought I wanted to be uplifting today, because I feel like I've done a lot of admonishment lately with the "Did you ever notice?" However, I can't. Here's the deal. I have many pet peeves, actually, but one of them, a very large pet peeve, and I think I have mentioned it before on the show, is when people you are dealing with don't follow the normal standard rules of society, leaving you to look like a moron or to suffer. For instance, people who you ask them not to bring their dog. This happened to Rafe, actually. So he asked somebody not to bring their dog because he had a dog and the dogs didn't get along. And they brought their dog anyway, and they were like, hey, we've got our dog with us, and things did not go well. And I remember Rafe was just maddened by that. That was before he became, his more callous Rafe that he is today. He was really, really bothered by it. And that's the very first time I ever sort of started thinking about what this topic really is all about, which is normal rules of adult life that are followed by the vast majority of people. But there are some people out there who know if they just don't follow them, if they don't follow the normal rules, most people will either just ignore it or they will be so dumbfounded that they won't react with the requisite outrage that I think is probably allowed. As a gaming example, for instance, when you're watching a game, you're all around a table, you're watching a miniatures game. Okay, unless you're a referee, none of the people around that game are any more important than any of the others. Okay, if you're all friends, we're saying we're all equal friends. And yet sometimes there are just folks who will stand right at the edge of the table, probably lean over it, maybe even, like rest on it with their arms or their forearms, and move along with the action, just walking in front of the other people that are watching. And you just want to say, like, man, A, that's not your game. Okay, and B, I was standing here at one remove, if you will, to allow the players to have all of their time and their space, and you're taking advantage of my being reasonable and not wanting to impose by standing in front of me, which is really aggravating. And it happens a lot, I think, where you run into these people who just don't follow the normal rules, or take advantage of people. Up in Maine, for instance, don't tell my wife I said this. Her family, we all stay in different cottages, scattered across like 5 streets that are all perpendicular to the beach. And years ago, we were all on one street. And so when we were all out on the beach, we would all go out on one beach, on that section of beach, and we would all be there together. This is a giant, enormous Italian family on Old Orchard Beach. They literally take up like 100 square feet when they're all... But anyway. So a few years ago, a couple different things happened. We all had to scatter a little bit. So now, like I said, we're like 5 streets, separated by 5 streets. Most of the elderly people and the small children are at the other end of that spread now. They're no longer where we once were. And yet, all of the people still set their stuff up all the way at the other end, making the older people and the young kids have to walk 5 streets to get to the beach. And it happens. It's some people say it's tradition. That's ridiculous. It's not tradition. Tradition is not where you're sitting on the beach. It's momentum, is what it is. It's just, you've been doing it for so long, you just keep doing it. But the interesting thing was that some of us, not me, it's not. I'm an in-law. I'm not a blood, so I don't have to be involved in all this. But someone approached one of the other families and was like, "Hey, can we like split the difference so we're all in the middle? I mean, all the older people have to walk all this way." And they danced around it. Well, we do it this way because this is the best for us, and and it was like we can't compromise, and walk like 100, 200 yards down the beach, and ultimately they said no, we're just not going to move. And so where does that leave you? This is my point. The people who act this way and then leave you feeling what does that leave me? So now I don't go to the beach with the family, or I go on my own, which now you're the one who's changing things up, right? You're the one who's looking like an idiot. You're the one who's making a big scene, and it's not fair. And so I beg you, if you're listening, okay, think about what you're doing. And again, it's one of the interesting things, and I love this about the podcast and about the listenership, is judging from the emails and the messages that we get and the posts on Daka, and the IMs, what's that individual message? I don't know. And when we meet folks out in conventions and stuff, like, you guys are not the people I'm ever talking about when I'm talking about the people who are annoying me. I can talk about fans of other podcasts because sometimes they're really annoying. But whenever I'm like, I'm preaching to the choir almost. Although I know there's some of you that don't agree with me, and there's some of you that are out there that are sick of my voice. And, there's one of you out there that wishes I would stop talking about writing, which I did, by the way. But anyway, but yeah, I know you guys aren't the ones out there that are breaking these conventions. But all of us, because we have to be the majority, right? All of the people who are actually following these rules unless because if we weren't, then these rules wouldn't exist. So we as a group need to stand up, and when we see people that are acting that way, that are just like, no, I'm not going to do what you expect me to do. I'm not going to do the socially acceptable thing. Okay, it has to be okay to call them out. And I decided actually very recently over the course of that trip that from now on this is going to be my crusade. And I've already done it a couple times since coming home, and it's funny because it kind of stops everybody short, and it does have that effect on the nice people that I thought it would have. Like, dude, why are you doing that? Why don't you don't have to be like that. But it also has an interesting effect on the people who are, ignoring the rules because they're kind of like, what? Me? And I've taken a great deal of amusement and excitement in that as well. So rise up, rules followers, and follow me to a land where everybody follows the rules, or if you don't, then you're the jerk. I don't know. That's about all I've got to say. It was a lot more eloquent in my head. Anyway, that's all I've got to say on this topic. Thanks for listening, and good night.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at info@the d6generation.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA discussions forum on DACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
The theme from Total Fangirl comes from the soundtrack of The Last Night on Earth, the zombie game, courtesy of Flying Frog Productions, and is a composition of Mary Beth Magalanes.
You're on. Cue Craig.
Didn't say go.
Cue Craig with the intro.
Whatever.
Are you doing the intro, Craig?
You just sabotaged me. That's not very nice.
No, go ahead, Craig. Jump in. 5, 4...
I don't know. Wait a minute.
A blooper reel.